Chapter 1185. His Imperial Highness the Crown Prince had already heard the cannons rumbling in the direction of the Sea Embassy. After all, in the bustling capital, only the Sea Embassy's architectural style was different. The foreign style, the sharp pavilions, and the towers were also a beautiful scenery. He was galloping on his horse, looking in the direction of the Sea Embassy. There was only burning anger in his eyes. Bastard! Despicable barbarian! Treacherous! How dare you behave so atrociously in the Hutu Empire? Right now, he had almost lost his mind. The changes in the imperial court today, the pressure from Sun Lang, the emperor's orders, the hatred for Empress, and the feelings of inferiority and anger he had for a long time had all exploded at this moment. He had betrayed Sun Lang at the critical moment and grabbed the olive branch from his father. He finally had a chance to prove himself because his cold-blooded and heartless sister had taken the wrong medicine and chosen to stand on Sun Lang's side. He followed his father's will and wanted to capture this disloyal and unfilial traitor. He was about to win. He had won against that woman for the first time and was about to trample her under his feet. At this moment, the cannons rumbled. One could tell at a glance that it was made by the Russians. It brought Empress away and disappeared without a trace. It must have been done by the Russians. Such a good situation, but it was all for naught. Li Jiansheng almost exploded. The emperor's concubine had been interrupted and saved. Not only did the fruits of victory fly away from his hands, he also couldn't complete the orders his imperial father gave him. If he couldn't capture this slut and bring her back to the palace, how was he going to win his imperial father's favor? How was he going to complete his mission? How was he going to keep his position as the crown prince and his wealth? Chase. He had to chase. He had to surround the Sea Embassy and catch all these rampant bandits. He had to force them to hand over the bitch and then kill them all to vent his anger. At this moment, a sharp whistle sounded from the sky. The imperial guard beside him shouted, "Your Highness, be careful." 2 tongues of flame fell from the sky, and a whistling metal storm, accompanied by flashing tracer bullets, swept toward the cavalrymen galloping along the street. Although these palace guards were well-trained and well-equipped, they had clearly not received any training to deal with air attacks. Fortunately, they were the Imperial Guards, one of the most elite troops in the world. The Imperial Guard leader shouted, "Shield, up, shoulder." The palace guards immediately raised their shields. The specially made round shields contained the craftsmanship of the Imperial Army. In an instant, colorful lights merged into one. The powerful palace knights held their breaths. Facing the rain of bullets that fell from the sky like a waterfall, they raised their shields and faced it head-on. They constantly adjusted their positions. The 2 tongues of fire were blocked by the continuous wall of shields. Then, spears and crossbows rained down on the attackers in the sky. "Traitor!" Li Jianxing's eyes almost popped out of their sockets as he roared. "How dare you attack me? You deserve to die 1,000 times over." Courier, who was flying a low altitude, had already used the cover of the market to burrow into the ground. He switched to silent mode, and in an instant he charged out from another spot, his flamethrowers spitting out blazing flames. Then, he ran away again. Li Jianxing flew into a rage and shouted, "That's all the bandits can do. We can deal with them. Let's hurry to Sea Mansion and raze their nest to the ground. Let's see what these bandits can do." At the same time, the elite operation team, led by Makarov, was also enduring endless provocation and humiliation. The one who attacked was Zhao Yunlong. Compared to Courier's harassment and guerrilla warfare, Cao Patao had many more tricks up her sleeves. After all, during the Tianyuan War, as Sun Lang's personal and loyal henchman, she had followed the commander of war and done many earth-shattering things. She had basically learned all of Sun Lang's ability to tease the Sky Demon. After all, she had been the lookout at the time. Assassinating the crown prince out of the blue was the most basic of operations. What setting a trap, what burying the crown prince with a wall, what hiding underground and stabbing the crown prince with a spear, none of these were worth mentioning. Furthermore, Yin Luo had even provided a powerful biological weapon as a prop. These things couldn't be used against the crown prince. After all, the people accompanying him were all palace guards, and there would definitely be people who still had a fresh memory of this smell. But against the Russians, there was no such concern. In short, the Li Fire people were infuriated, and Li Jiansheng was also infuriated by the teasing. The two sides gradually drew closer under the guidance of ulterior motives. Yin Luo and the others took the opportunity to evacuate the civilians. They had already chosen an excellent battlefield to prepare for this wonderful collision of the heavens and earth. The sound of iron hooves could be heard. The palace guards were about to turn the corner. The Li Fire elite troops were also about to arrive at the battlefield. The two sides turned the corner at the same time. On the wide and straight road, there was not a trace of defense. Their respective vanguard troops met face to face, and they were all shocked when they saw the situation. The next moment, on the Li Fire elite troops side, Courier suddenly rushed out from a side shop and pulled the trigger at His Imperial Highness the Crown Prince's army. He roared in an extremely Russian tone, "Holy fire above, fellow believers, kill them all." At the same time, Zhao Yunlong also jumped out from the palace guard side and shouted, "Kill all the Li Fire bandits." The palace guards immediately recognized Courier's eye-catching Li Fire exquisite weapon. And the Li Fire side also recognized Zhao Yunlong, the hateful Huda warrior. When enemies meet, their eyes are especially red. The Li Fire elite troops pulled the trigger without thinking, and the palace guard short spears and crossbows were also fired. In an instant, the sound of gunfire and screams sounded at the same time. Makarov and the team was anxious. After seeing the figure of the death messenger, he was stunned for 3 seconds. Then he realized that this might be the enemy's trick. He shouted, "Wait a minute!" But his shout was already drowned out by the rumbling sound of the gunfire. Amidst the furious howls of the Russians, crossbows and javelins were shot over. The Imperial Guards of the Earth Empress Imperial City suddenly spurred their horses to speed up. Some of the horses that were killed nimbly landed on the ground and immediately charged forward on foot. These warriors with high martial arts moved their bodies and dodged the endless barrage of bullets. Those who got close to them would use their shields and even their wristbands to block. They actually braved the concentrated firepower and charged forward, closing in on the formation of the Li Fire Nation. The advantage of firearms was the killing range. In close combat, the combat power would sharply decrease. And Zhao Yunlong and Courier had already set an example. The moment the battle broke out, they fought together. The two tacitly and fiercely fought, and then disappeared behind the building on the right side at the same time. It's done. Yin Luo paid close attention to all of this. Seeing that the battle had begun, she was relieved. She looked at the field. There were already casualties in the battle. After all, the Li Fire side also had the sharp metal troops mixed in. Those sharp metal machines made up for the shortcomings of the knights in close combat, and to some extent, reduced the palace guard's advantage. She frowned and sighed softly. Lu Shujin said, "Don't feel guilty. This is not your intention. We are doing the right thing. In order to prevent worse things from happening, in order to prevent this country from falling into the abyss. We are right." Yin Luo nodded silently. With a gust of wind, Zhao Yunlong appeared behind her. "I have to praise you again. Your proposal has already captured the essence of Sun Lang's strategy. He often comes up with such ingenious ideas." Yin Luo nodded. "Let's not talk about this first. The two sides are in chaos. When are we going to take the chestnuts out of the fire?" Chao Patao was a soldier and could be ruthless. Hearing this, he said indifferently, "Let's wait a little longer." Now that the two sides are in a fierce battle, they are burning with anger and killing intent. If we act suddenly, it will be easy to alert them. At least half of our people have to die to dampen their spirit. Yin Luo sighed again. "Don't feel guilty. The people on Li Hua's side deserve to die. As for Li Jiansheng and his people," Zhao Yunlong said coldly, "without a doubt, all the casualties and losses today and in the future will be recorded on the heads of the emperor and the Li family. You only need to think this way." The sound of cannons shook. The violent explosion immediately exploded and the earth shook. Li Jiansheng was horrified to see the broken bodies of several imperial guards blown up into the sky. The 7 or 8 soldiers around him were also scattered by invisible hammers. They vomited blood and fell to the ground. The shock wave that swept toward him almost blew him down. Li Wuxide had already used heavy firepower. He looked at the battle in a daze. These Lihua bandits showed amazing fighting power. Even though the Imperial Guards fought bravely, the dense gunfire, the blazing flames, and the violent explosions. Even though the Imperial Guards were skilled in martial arts, there would always be a time when their internal energy would be exhausted. There would always be a time when their strength would be exhausted. However, the Lihua bandits' guns seemed to never run out of bullets. The most terrible thing was that he led the light cavalry team to chase quickly and did not bring the heavy Imperial Army equipment at all. Even though there were elite warriors who rushed into the enemy's formation in the face of the rain of bullets, before they could kill, the strangely shaped sharp metal weapons would silently attack them, cutting their bodies and taking away their lives. The losses were heavy. What was going on? His face was pale as he looked at all of this in a daze. No, this was not right. The Imperial Army, why was the Imperial Army useless? These barbarians, how could they be so powerful? Aren't their firearms marvelous? Weren't they using crooked methods that relied on external forces? How? Your Highness! An urgent call woke him up from his daze. The commander of the Imperial Guard shouted, "Your Highness, please retreat." Li Jiansheng was stunned. "Commander Fong, why can't we win? You, the Crown Prince, are too ignorant of military affairs." The commander shouted, "The Lihua bandits came prepared. These are all powered armors. Only the warriors of the Imperial Army can fight against them. A lowly general's Imperial Army allocation rate is too low, and their grades are not high. Moreover, they have the help of the country of acute metal. Your Highness, these two countries are up to no good. We must mobilize strong troops to suppress them." After saying that, he pulled the Crown Prince's reins and shouted, "Retreat! Escort His Highness to retreat." In the Lihua bandits' formation, Makarov mumbled, "This outfit, and that person over there, it's the Crown Prince. It's the Crown Prince of Hutu. Holy fire above." He said in ecstasy, "Capture him! Capture him! If we can capture him alive, our plan will be more than half successful. My friends, for His Majesty the Divine King, for the Order of Flames, charge." Lu Shujin, who was secretly observing, sneered. "His Imperial Highness the Crown Prince is so useless." Zhao Yunlong said indifferently, "Keep up. I'm getting more and more curious. These Lihua bandits aren't setting fire everywhere to cause chaos, nor are they attacking the important government offices. What are they doing?" Zhang Yinluo asked, "If we suddenly attack and capture Makarov now," Zhao Yunlong rejected him, "then his men will become the craziest lunatics. Before we wipe them out, they may cause serious damage to the innocent civilians around them." Yinluo clenched his fist. "Are we just going to leave them alone?" "Not really." Zhao Yunlong smiled coldly. "Just change the battlefield. Near the Imperial City, there's no need to worry about that. The Li family will have to bear the consequences of their sins." The Imperial Guards were retreating quickly. Behind them came the mad roars of the Russians and the sharp sound of stray bullets piercing through the air. "Return to the palace. Quickly return to the palace. Send a warning." The leader shouted. "Tell them to send reinforcements immediately." Damn it! Barbarians are running rampant in the Imperial City. What are the government offices doing? Why aren't they mobilizing troops to quell the chaos? A Imperial Guard asked, "Sir, which gate?" "Whichever is closest." The leader shouted. "The safety of the Crown Prince is more important. We're in the north." The adjutant replied. "Then let's go to the Black Tortoise Gate." Li Jiansheng said loudly. "Let's go to the Black Tortoise Gate. Returning to the palace is more important. These crazy Lihua bandits, I'll mobilize the army to crush them." His voice was hoarse, and there was a hint of madness in it. The Imperial Guards glanced at him. Although they didn't say a word, they already felt some disdain for this prince. At the same time, in Tensei province, there was a drill ground in the mansion. Empress stood with her hand on her sword, looking at the silent troops in front of her. She took a deep breath and said loudly, "Today, I'll go with you to the Yellow Springs. Next year, our corpses will turn to dust and nourish the earth. We'll bloom into beautiful flowers and fly in the imperial city's sky, protecting this ancient city forever. Everyone, let's march one last time. Our goal is Xian Wu Gate. Chapter 1186. Empress Tensei was good at battle formations and using troops. She was much stronger than Jiansheng in terms of methods and temperament. Perhaps the biggest mistake she had made in her life was being born as a woman. The army gathered in Tensei province, headed for the imperial city. Rather than an army, it was more like a motley crew put together at the last minute. The guards in the residence were the most organized. Other than that, there were also hangers-on, assassins, and even servants who were inspired by Her Highness to join this team that was destined to never return. They were well aware of this, because Empress had made it clear that this trip was no different from throwing away their lives. However, they still chose to go. It was because Her Highness Empress would also go with them. Her Highness Empress would also go to hell with them. Sometimes, such a simple reason was enough. Even the noblest and most powerful woman in the world was willing to die, not to mention the people who had received His Highness's kindness. How could they not share life and death and valiantly return the favor? The people who stayed behind cried and knelt on the ground as they watched Her Highness disappear at the end of the long street. The old butler was in tears, and the generals who were forced to stay behind were trembling all over. Sometimes, staying behind and living required even greater courage. Her Highness had instructed that the outcome of this trip was unpredictable, but there must be survivors who remembered their sacrifice, spread their stories, and take good care of the families of the deceased. Even if the story that happened today could not be recorded in official history, it had to be passed down from generation to generation. Regardless of whether it was an unofficial history or a joke, there had to be someone who remembered today after thousands of years. As long as there was someone, it was enough. The belief and spirit of the warriors, the huge wealth and power left behind by Tensei province, had to be entrusted to someone, whether it was material or spiritual. Her Highness had already made arrangements and given instructions. This team rushed towards the imperial city. Even in such a chaotic situation, the Empress concubine was still calm. She knew that the most important thing for this trip was to be fast. Although there were many capable people in this army that was pieced together, facing the encirclement of the imperial court's elite troops, their chances of victory were not high. She wanted to stir up trouble in the imperial city and force the imperial guards to activate the palace defense array before the warden's office. The Ministry of War and even the martial arts hall reacted and conscripted the guards in the capital or even the experts from the Sword Palace. Otherwise, everything would be over. It's all because of that scoundrelly Jiansheng. To think that he would accuse me of treason outside the palace. Otherwise, I could still rely on my reputation and prestige to coax the various yamens into supporting me. Now, I can only rely on myself. She sped up the march while still paying close attention to the intelligence gathering. This was her habit in battle. Even now, she did not forget to maintain the operation of the Heavenly Policy Palace's intelligence network and dispatch subordinates to keep an eye on the capital. She maintained this good habit. He was much stronger than Li Jianqing, so she was destined to accomplish something. What? She kept above her horses above. The leader of the secret agents who rode beside her nodded firmly. It's right. The Sea Mansion was in chaos. There was even a fire, which was put out by the psionics of the Xinshui sect. The Lihua embassy was in a mess with smoke everywhere. In addition, the Imperial Guards and a team of Lihua elite troops had a fierce conflict in Wuda Lane. Li Jiansheng is an idiot. Although the Empress concubine said this, she still smiled. At this time, there was no better news than the enemy making a fool of themselves. She didn't even need to think to know that this stupid fellow must have thought that it was the Leaf Fire Country who kidnapped her and angrily went to denounce them. In the end, although the Lihua kingdom was a bastard, where did they get the guts to open fire in the imperial city and even kill the imperial guards? She suddenly realized the abnormality of this matter. However, there were priorities, and she couldn't care less about that now. She shouted, "Speed up! Attack the Xuanwu Gate! The rise and fall of the empire depends on this." Wuda Lane was in the east of the Sea Mansion, which was also in the north of the imperial city. If Li Jiansheng was in a hurry to return to the palace, he would definitely go to the Xuanwu Gate. In this case, if she moved faster, she might be able to intercept Li Jiansheng outside the Xuanwu Gate. At this moment, Li Jiansheng was running away crazily. He was going crazy. He, Li Jiansheng, the crown prince of the empire, the future emperor, was being chased by a group of uncivilized barbarians in the capital of his own country. He was running for his life like crazy. This was too strange. It made him fall into deep self-doubt. Am I, Hutu, really the best martial artist in the world? How could these Rakshasa ghosts be so rampant? Do I, the crown prince, still have dignity and face? But self-doubt was just self-doubt. He had to run for his life. Damn it. The only thing he could do now was to return to the palace and find a way to mobilize the army. Whether it was the Imperial Guard in the palace or the Ministry of War, he must gather enough troops to wipe out all the rebels. He should have done this in the first place. It was just that he almost caught Empress Tensei, but he was careless and failed at the last step. He was impatient, so he rushed out of the palace. He thought that with the power of the empire, the audacious Lihua bandits would obediently ask for forgiveness and return the empress. Who knew that they were so audacious that they even dared to fight back? Just you wait. Thinking of this, he could not help but feel guilty. After all, he almost messed up this matter. But it did not matter. Father Emperor did not know. Father Emperor must be fighting with Sun Lang in the Golden Palace right now. He really hoped that the two of them would die together. If that was the case, then it must be the pity of the ancestors and the blessing of the previous emperors. The Hutu Empire would definitely prosper for thousands of years. As Li Jianxing ran, his thoughts ran wild. An appropriate amount of absent-mindedness helped to relieve his nervous mood. When he recalled the crushing defeat just now, he couldn't help but shudder. Remorse arose again, and he had to calm down. He warned himself that as the crown prince, he could defend the imperial city and command hundreds of officials. He should advance step by step, mobilize the troops, gather the general trend, and suppress the heavenly policy mansion. He should capture Sun Lang's entire family in one fell swoop and announce to the world that these two thieves had rebelled. This was the right path. He could not let anger get to his head again. As long as I return to the palace, at this moment, he heard the Imperial Guard beside him shout, "Not good. It's. What is it?" Li Jianxing looked up, and his soul flew out of his body. He saw a group of people coming out from the left. The person in the lead was wearing a white helmet and white armor. It was the current Tensei general. Li Jiansheng shouted in panic, "Traitor!" He spurred the horse, hating that the horse only had 4 legs. "Quick, quick, quick! Enter the palace, enter the palace, enter the palace. Don't let this bitch catch up. She actually gathered people to attack the imperial city. She's crazy." Empress shouted, Imperial brother, please wait. This foolish sister has something to say. I'll listen to your big head ghost." Li Jiansheng had a guilty conscience. He immediately drew his bow and shot an arrow. However, because he was too nervous, 3 arrows in a row missed. Empress saw this and drew her bow to a full moon. The arrow shot out like a meteor. It was a loud bang. It hit the shield of the guard beside Li Jiansheng. She shouted, "Kill." The sword energy swept across. The arrows flew like locusts, and the hidden weapons pierced through the air. Empress's miscellaneous troops all showed their skills and shouted together to kill. The Imperial Guards also immediately counterattacked. No matter what, they had to protect His Imperial Highness the Crown Prince. However, this army had just experienced a battle with Li Hua's elites. Under the powerful power armor and fierce firepower, they suffered a lot of losses. At this time, they were in a very bad state. The Imperial Guard leader shouted, "Don't linger. Continue to advance. The Xuanwu Gate's Imperial Guards will receive you. Cover His Highness and leave first." Empress raised her arms and shouted, "Since things have come to this, capture Jiansheng first." The Tensei province's soldiers were fighting with their lives. Their morale was high as they charged forward. The Imperial Guards, on the other hand, were retreating. If this continued, they would win in an instant. After chasing for a while, they would be able to capture Li Jiansheng alive. At that time, it would be up to Empress to kill or torture him. However, at this time, the mixed army of Li Hua and Rui Jin had already approached. Makarov's heart sank when he suddenly saw a group of horses. He thought it was the Empire's troops. However, when he took a closer look, he saw that the flags and armor were actually from Tensei province. Moreover, the general in charge was a dignified and beautiful woman. Who else could it be other than the general of Tensei? He was overjoyed and said sternly, "It's really the divine emperor's mercy. The general of Tensei and the crown prince of the empire are here. We don't have to run around anymore. Prepare for battle." The rear of Tensei province's army was attacked. Artillery fire swept over and bullets flew. It was chaos. Empress was commanding the charge. Seeing this, she said angrily, "They don't know what's good for them." She immediately ordered the army to split up and focus on delaying Li Hua's army. This was a last resort. After all, the generals were in the imperial court. Although the deputy generals were skilled in the art of war, they might not be able to deal with Li Hua's army. However, they couldn't care less about this now. Li Jiansheng was the most important. The stalemate in the imperial city was the most important. She fought hard and gave orders. However, another bad thing followed. The Xuanwu Gate opened and the Dragon Spear army swarmed out. The enemy's reinforcements had arrived. This was within her expectation. However, she didn't expect the Li Hua people to suddenly intervene and divide her precious forces. Therefore, the situation became worse. In front of her, there were the Imperial Army's reinforcements. Behind her, there were the Li Hua elites. There was an explosion in the air that tore everything apart. The war machine on the Imperial City's wall had been activated. Empress said sternly, "Kill." At this point, there was only a bloody battle. Yin Luo, who was observing the battle, suddenly changed his expression. "We can't wait any longer." Zhao Yunlong pondered for a moment. Although she didn't mind waiting for a while longer, but "Let's go," she said. Therefore, a deadly shadow rushed from the sky and the earth to the rear of Li Hua's army. However, this chaotic battle was also beyond their expectations. Even if they quickly joined the battle, they couldn't change the situation quickly. Empress was still fighting hard. However, Li Jiansheng was getting further and further away from her. The people around her kept falling. The frightening dragon crossbow on the Imperial City's wall had been fired 3 times. Each time, it could cause a large number of casualties. The Dragon Spear army that came to support her had already joined the Imperial army. The pressure became very, very great. She fought hard and was at the front line, but the opportunity was getting further and further away from her. "Your Highness, be careful." In a trance, a soldier beside her shouted. It turned out that a team of Dragon Spear army quietly moved to the left side of the formation, widened the distance, and began a charge. In an instant, it turned into an earth-shattering force and roared, cutting off the troops of Tensei province and dividing the battlefield. For a moment, there were very few people left around Empress. Li Jiansheng, who was about to enter the city under the escort of the Imperial Guards, stopped. He saw everything. He saw the woman's desperate struggle and the disadvantage she was in now. The Dragon Spear army's surprise attack had already divided the battlefield. No matter how crazily the soldiers of Tensei province behind her charged, they couldn't break through the defense of the Dragon Spear army. And Empress was already surrounded. A small group of troops around her still charged this way to protect her, but it was useless. She tried to break out of the encirclement, but it was useless. In the end, her warhorse fell to the ground after being shot by an arrow, throwing her body far away. She rolled on the ground a few times, covered in blood, but then struggled to stand up and rushed in the direction of Li Jiansheng. She was reckless. As long as dozens of cavalrymen charged, they could kill her or capture her alive. But they couldn't. Li Jiansheng's blood suddenly boiled. He should have directly hidden in the palace or ordered the Imperial Guards to capture this woman alive, But after being stimulated by the blood on the battlefield, by the various changes today, and by the scene in front of him, he couldn't help but have different thoughts. This came from the inferiority and pain he felt over the years. In his eyes, there was only this crazy and persistent figure. It was as if she would never give up, as if she would never fall. She was the role model that Imperial Father spoke of, but she was also the nightmare in his heart. This was because he had to be compared to everything. He was compared to this little sister, and then he was defeated, disappointed, and talked about. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't compare to this woman. No matter how hard he tried, it seemed that she was better than him. But I don't believe it. I want to win. I can win too. Get out of the way. She's a relative of the Li clan. Leave her to me. All of you watch this. He roared like a lion, snatched the spear from the Imperial guard beside him, and rushed toward the lonely figure like a mad tiger, roaring angrily. I want to watch you die. Kill her, kill her, kill her, kill her, kill her. The Emperor's cold orders had been completely thrown to the back of his mind. The cold and ruthless Emperor had gradually lost his human emotions, so he naturally misunderstood his eldest son's thoughts. When the threat to his life and the cruel battle destroyed all reason, what filled Jianqing's heart was only hysterical, killing intent. Go die, slut. There was no one by her side that could help her. Empress's eyes were silent. She supported her body, standing on the ground, her hands tightly holding the spear, her eyes serious. She knew that her condition was not good, and she also knew that Li Jianqing's martial arts were not bad. In this situation, in her condition, the chance of winning was not high, and the result of losing was death. But she was still very calm, waiting for the last fight of her life to come. Li Jianqing held the spear, rushed forward on the horse, and madly rushed toward Empress. Now, there was no warrior standing around General Tensei. It was a mess in front of the Xuanwu Gate. Everyone was crazily fighting, everyone was trapped in a quagmire, and no one could do anything about it. Except for one person. Inluo shouted, General Tensei. Empress's pupils shrank, and she suddenly turned her head. But the Yangyan power armor rushed forward, and after a run-up of more than 10 steps, the hydraulic lever and booster propulsion were fully activated. The huge power armor circled 3.5 times on the spot, and all the power was gathered at one point of the arm, and the heavy thermite machine gun passed through the layers of human walls and the chaotic battlefield, and threw it in the direction of Empress. Empress threw away the spear. She knew that her condition was very bad. She only had one chance and opportunity that must be grasped. Then she jumped high and grabbed the handle of the heavy machine gun. The heavy weight and the impact of the leap made her let out a muffled groan, and her body was knocked back. General Tensei suddenly landed on the ground and immediately stepped back. The tiles on the ground continued to shatter. She took a horse stance, and her lower body martial arts and lightness technique neutralized the impact. She stood firm, and while retreating, she struggled to raise her arm. The weapon in her hand was heavier than the heaviest battlefield weapon, but it was her last hope. Empress gritted her teeth, raised the thermite machine gun, and aimed it at the Hotu Crown Prince, His Highness Li Jianqiang, who was rushing toward her. That was her brother, and also the sin she was about to commit. At this time, Empress couldn't help but be stunned. She couldn't help but think of thousands of years later of the history. How would the people of the future comment on today's events? No matter what, I don't regret. In a flash, she suddenly clenched the firing valve on the handle of the gun. Then she felt the gun in her hand begin to tremble. This killing weapon from Li Huo woke up from its slumber. The 6 slender straight tubes spun from slow to fast and aimed at the crown prince of the empire, making a buzzing sound that seemed to come from hell. Chapter 1187. The crown prince didn't have time to rein in his horse. The guards didn't have time to save him. Time seemed to have slowed down. The blood splattered across the battlefield, the arc of light refracted by the sharp blades, the flying bullets, the exploding stones, the undulating mane of the warhorse, the trembling red tassels of the long spear. Everything slowed down. It was as if someone had slowed down everything, witnessed everything, and recorded everything. The thermite heavy machine gun. The bullets were steel balls wrapped in thermite. They were fired at an extremely high speed. After hitting the target, they scattered into fine metal powder and mist. Then, they ignited the fire of hell and summoned the breath of the devil. It was one of the representative works of the divine power of flames in the world. It was the most lethal heavy weapon used by the paladins. After a short preheating and spinning, it spat out a flame dragon that could devour everything. The Imperial Guards and the Dragon Spear Army, who were slow to react, shouted and rushed forward. However, under their gazes, the Crown Prince, who was galloping wildly on his horse, suddenly stopped and trembled violently. Then a fireball suddenly exploded. The pillar of fire soared into the sky, and the flames spread. The extremely high temperature burned and destroyed everything. Whether it was soft armor or the Imperial Army, martial arts, or the body, everything had a limit. His Imperial Highness the Crown Prince screamed and struggled. His warhorse also twisted and jumped crazily in pain. A clear light protected Jinching's body. But that was only the treasure of the Imperial Army that was given to the children of the Imperial Army to protect themselves. The real protective gear of the Crown Prince hadn't been handed over to him in time. This kind of Imperial Army couldn't protect the Crown Prince from the blazing flames. The half-baked protection would only increase the pain before his death. Moreover, seeing his brother in such a tragic situation, Empress didn't release the trigger. The thermite heavy machine gun poured out scorching flames tirelessly, burning Li Jiansheng, who was screaming in pain. Bullets whooshed out like a storm and became the nourishment for the breath of hell. No one expected that the Crown Prince of the Hodu Empire would welcome his death in such a tragic way in front of the palace gate of the royal palace. His entire body was covered in injuries caused by steel beads, his entire body burned by flames. Together with his horse, the flames burned fiercely, roasting the man and horse's flesh, roasting the metal armor, even gradually fusing the two together, burning into the appearance of a red hair. Everyone was shocked by the scene in front of them. No one had expected such a thing to happen. The Empire, the strongest empire in the world, the empire whose martial arts were above the entire world. The Crown Prince was dead. Right outside the Imperial City, right in front of the Black Tortoise Gate. Cause of death, fratricide. The Imperial Guards let out a violent howl, not only out of fear, shock, shame, and confusion. They were all soldiers of the Empire, proud of the glory and strength of their motherland. They couldn't understand, they couldn't accept. This was not only a personal dereliction of duty, but also a scar of the entire empire. They went crazy, rushing toward General Tensei, who pulled the trigger like crazy tigers. The sense of honor overwhelmed everything. No one was afraid of this strange and deadly weapon. They had to fulfill their duty. They raised their arms and threw the war spears in their hands, using all the strength in their bodies, piercing through the air, whistling and screaming. Empress was in a trance at this moment. He didn't know how to dodge, and he was about to be stabbed into a hedgehog. At the crucial moment, Zhao Yunlong descended from the sky. With a shake of her spear, she swept away all of the throwing spears. She pulled the Emperor's concubine back and slapped her. "Do you want to die?" The bullets had been used up, but Empress still held the trigger tightly. His eyes were blank, and his body was trembling. Fratricide, killing the Crown Prince. Her mind had been filled with no other thoughts, but now that she had come back to her senses, she had done the big thing. Even someone as swift and decisive as her now felt waves of trembling, fear, and loss. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, she had killed her own brother, causing the Crown Prince to shed blood in the Xuanwu Gate. All of her achievements and reputation would disappear like smoke, and history would remember this day. She had wanted to change the empire. She had made countless contributions. She had given up on the person she loved most. But now, all of her perseverance and sacrifice had become meaningless. She had carried the crime of fratricide, and all of her honor and reputation no longer existed. Infamy and disdain would accompany her until death. She had lost everything. How could all of this be relieved with a sentence of, "I don't regret it"? She looked at Zhao Yunlong, tears falling in a daze. The battlefield was in an uproar. Even the Russians of Lihua forgot to open fire. Lu Shujin also looked at Yin Luo, dumbfounded. There was no doubt that this girl's 3.5 turns of body had provided the lethal weapon to kill the crown prince. A moment later, a Lihua Russian pointed at Yin Luo and stammered. "It's her. She's the one who killed the crown prince of Hutu." Yin Luo was shocked at first, then angry. He shouted, "Why are you blaming me again? You threw the thermite gun over. You instigated her to kill him." The Russian confirmed the accusation against Yin Luo based on the principle of the Lihua Code of Lihua, then fell into deep thought and doubt. "Who are you? Whose side are you on?" At this moment, another Russian cried out, "Wait a minute! I recognized this power armor, and the fire patterns painted on it. The blessing from the Cardinal College. I know who you are. You're that." Before he could finish his sentence, KRYL crashed down, and the violent impact caused the Russians' mecha to cave in. Immediately, Makarov's guns and cannons blasted over. He shouted, "Continue to fight. The enemy hasn't fallen yet. This person is also a traitor who has betrayed Lihua. In the name of the Divine Emperor, execute her." Yin Luo fired back, and the battle resumed. The chaotic battle continued. Zhao Yunlong shook the muddle-headed Empress violently. "Why are you crying? Is this the time to cry?" Empress stared blankly at Xiao Patao. "Is your goal just to kill Li Jianshun? Is that it?" Zhao Yunlong grabbed her armor and said sternly, "Open your eyes and look. This is your country. This is your Li family's mess. And who is the person in the palace fighting for this country? It's Sun Lang. He could have just left. Do you want him to just leave like this?" Empress's dull eyes lit up with a bit of starlight. She seemed to gradually regain her vitality. An inexplicable persistence injected the last of her strength into this disheartened and exhausted body. Perhaps it was because of her obsession and responsibility to protect the empire. Perhaps it was because she didn't want to let down all the sacrifices and perseverance so far. Perhaps it was just for a person's name. She couldn't fall here yet. She reached out her hand, and Zhao Yunlong handed over the spear in his hand. The general of heavenly strategies took the weapon and raised it high with all his might. She shouted sternly. "Li Jianshun flattered the emperor, gave a false imperial edict, and even tried to murder me. Today he is beheaded. We will enter the palace to ask for forgiveness from his majesty. All soldiers, listen up, follow me into the palace." The people of Tensei province who were in the midst of fighting had no objections. They didn't suffer any heavy casualties, nor did they suffer any heavy impact. They came here out of their trust and loyalty to Empress to carry out their loyalty and beliefs. No matter what the emperor did, no matter where the emperor went, was there a second choice. They responded in unison with a roar like a tsunami. Although there were less than 1,000 people, their bloodthirsty and heroic momentum was indomitable. Most of the imperial guards had lost their spirit. The death of the crown prince and the great change of the empire impacted the hearts of these ordinary soldiers. An empress said that she wanted to enter the palace brazenly, which shocked them even more. After all, this deranged woman had killed her brother without any hesitation. She could no longer turn back. Who knew what kind of treacherous things she would do once she entered the palace? With their duty, the remaining imperial guards quickly made a decision. The leader shouted, "Enter the palace, enter the palace, enter the palace. Close the palace gates. Don't let these thieves touch the imperial city." This was their ultimate mission, to protect the imperial city. The leader took out a short flute and blew it with all his might. It shook the 9 heavens. All the 9 gates of the emperor could hear this sound, but it couldn't be used casually. It was the ultimate signal for malfeasance. This was the ultimate warning signal used by the guardians of the 9 gates of the emperor. Not only did they remind each other to be on guard, they also made the most serious request to the martial supervisor of the inner division to activate the imperial guard formation. Because the situation had deteriorated to this point, The frightening dragon crossbows on the city walls were fired in response, and more war machines were unsealed. The forbidden guards took turns to provide cover and quickly entered the palace. The strongmen were already doing their best to push the winch to close the heavy palace gates. The forbidden guards, filled with hatred and fear, rode their horses into the most magnificent palace in the world. If they were calmer, they would realize that Empress Tensei, who was famous in the 6 armies for his art of war, wasn't in a hurry to attack the palace. Instead, he slowly gathered his troops and assumed an offensive posture. The first thing the leader of the Imperial Guard said after entering the palace gates was, "Quick, quick, quick! Immediately report to Eunuch Bingjian of the Marshal Supervisor. If we don't activate the Imperial Guard formation, it will be too late." A subordinate quickly rode his horse away. Another adjutant hesitated and said, "General, His Imperial Highness the Crown Prince's body. We didn't get it back." The general said hatefully, "It's almost burned to ashes. What can we do with it? What can we do with it if we leave it to her? If it's a complete body, we can still show his head to the public. What can we do with a char body? The only thing we can do now is to guard the palace and summon the army to protect the emperor. We must destroy the rebels." "Yes." The general climbed up the wall and carefully looked outside the palace. The troops of Tensei province didn't rush to the palace first. Instead, they spread out and surrounded the elite troops of Lihua. This was expected. After all, they had to solve the problem first. However, what was the matter with these Lihua people? "They're all damn thieves." The general of the Imperial Guards said hatefully, "It's better if they all die in a fight." The charred body of His Imperial Highness the Crown Prince lay quietly not far from the Xuanwu Gate. It was still surrounded by dozens of flames and emitted a faint green smoke. The Imperial Guards didn't have time to get his body back because it was still on fire and had fused with the war horses. Inluo and the soldiers of Tensei province didn't care about it. After all, it was just a dead man. What did it have to do with the glory he had when he was alive? That was why no one noticed that within His Highness the Crown Prince's corpse, through those deep burn wounds, there was a fleeting and disturbing golden radiance that flickered. Chapter 1188. When the Tensei province returned to kill and surround Lihua's troops, the Russians no longer had any chance, because what they faced was a more powerful force and a higher level of command. At the end of the Great War of Tianyuan, the world fell into a carnival of celebration. The soldiers returned home in glory, and the civilians wept with joy. But behind a fanatical celebration and joyful commemoration, the various countries engaged in a new round of competition and even conflict over the legacy of the Sky Demon. Battles that were controlled to a certain degree of intensity broke out everywhere. Surrounding the military bases and secret communities of the Sky Demon, the most elite soldiers of the various countries launched a showdown that included probing and competition. Lives were constantly falling, and intelligence was constantly being collected. The strategists of the various countries evaluated the strength of the two countries from the visual results of the battle and tried to find the military weakness of the new competitor. And the person in charge of this on the Empire's side was Empress Tensei. Therefore, she knew how to resist Lihua's all-conquering concentrated firepower, and also knew how to break through the incomparably sturdy power armor. She even had ideas on how to deal with the sharp metal weapons that assisted in the battle. The warriors used the Imperial army to shake the earth, and the powerful force cracked the hard stone slabs, causing the thick ground to loosen and fall apart. The power armor that was standing still and attacking immediately swayed. Although the excellent transmission system allowed Lihua's warriors to wear heavy armor and walk as if they were flying and walking as if they were walking on flat ground, the Russians were forced to spend several times more energy to maintain their balance in this situation of shaking the earth and unstable footing. With this move alone, a huge flaw appeared in the Russians' impregnable firepower formation. There were also warriors who dared to risk their lives to climb up first using the rolling hall saber technique and the flying racer technique to quickly advance. Their wandering body technique avoided the firepower to the greatest extent, making it difficult for the enemy to aim. They immediately rushed into Li Hua's formation. For the Knights of Li Hua, being close to the warriors of the Hutu often meant death. Although the power armor could provide them with rock-solid defense and a huge increase in wrist strength, the enemy they were facing this time was not the domestic heretics, nor was it the ferocious sky demon, but the Hutu warriors who had special combat skills. They did not need heavy blunt weapons. With only a pair of palms, they could use a special force technique called soft force to slap a tearing force that was enough to destroy the body into their bodies through the thick power armor. For a time, muffled groans and screams could be heard. The heavy power armor was thrown to the ground by a skillful force. A seemingly light but heavy cotton palm hit the head of the armor. The sturdy power armor was not damaged at all, but had become an iron coffin. The person controlling the power armor spat out blood mixed with pieces of internal organs and died without a sound. The sharp metal machines in the formation were also unable to provide any assistance. This was because the enemy this time was the soldiers of Tensei Province. Although their organization and training were not as good as the Imperial Guards, their individual combat power was far superior. To deal with this small power armor unit, the latter was more important. Inluo looked at the Li Hua people who were dying one after another, listened to their holy names and screams before they died, and sighed silently. She was not pitying the fate of these people, but worried about what would happen next and what role the divine power of flame played. The bandit leader, Makarov, was soon captured alive. He seemed to have the will to die and wanted to die a heroic death, but Zhao Yunlong and Courier, who had been watching him, would not give him this opportunity. Both Hutu and Li Hua made their moves at the same time. Zhao Yunlong used his exquisite martial arts skills to stop Li Hua's attempt to commit suicide. KRYL used his familiarity with Li Hua's power armor to remove Li Hua's armor at the first moment and search for the poison and poison needles on him. The poison needles in his hair, the poison on his collar, and the miniature red sun bullets in his necklace. Courier threw the things in his hand on the ground and said coldly, "As the envoy of Li Hua, you seem to have received a complete spy training from the Ministry of Legal Affairs." "How strange." Makarov spat. "Traitor." Empress Tensei came over and handed the heavy thermite machine gun back to Inluo and said lightly, "Thank you. You contributed greatly to killing Li Jianxing this time." Inluo stuttered. "You were the one who killed him. Don't get involved with me." Empress seemed to have thought of something and smiled. "Then it depends on how the historian records it." Zhang Yinluo seemed to want to say something, but he closed his mouth and sighed. "God, let's divert our attention." After the weakness and disappointment just now, Empress had become tough again. Her eyes flashed with a sharp light, stabbing into Makarov's face as if to pierce through his soul. "For example, this person," she asked, "does he have any value?" Inluo glanced at Zhao Yunlong. After receiving old Zhao's permission, she said with a bit of unease, "Earlier, when we ambushed Li Hua's embassy, we discovered some information and came to a conclusion. Someone on Li Hua's side seemed to have predicted today's huge change, so they instructed him to make some preparations in advance." Empress's pupils suddenly shrank, and she cried out involuntarily, "What did you say?" Her reaction was exactly the same as Zhao Yunlong's. This guess was too absurd and too terrifying. Today's change was the conspiracy of the Emperor and the Devil. If someone in Li Hua knew about today's change in advance, what did that mean? What did it mean? It was unimaginable. At this moment, Makarov, who was kneeling on the ground, let out a hoarse laugh. "Pitiful people of the Empire, you are about to meet your end." It was said in the language of the Empire. His pronunciation was perfect. "I almost forgot. Emissary of Li Hua, you can understand our language." Empress narrowed her eyes. "You privately led troops in the capital of the Empire, attacking the Crown Prince and myself. You cannot escape the death penalty, and there is no way for you to live. But if you know what's good for you, you could die quickly and painlessly. I can promise you this." Makarov spat out a mouthful of bloody spittle. "We don't have much time, and I have other things to do. Empress looked at Zhao Yunlong and asked, My subordinates are proficient in interrogating prisoners. Why don't we let them deal with this and make this guy talk as soon as possible? Zhao Yunlong shook his head. You also know that we don't have much time. We have more suitable candidates. She motioned to Yin Luo, and Yin Luo sent a signal to the sky. Soon, Princess Pingyang rushed over with Zhao Feihuang. Chao Patao didn't explain much, only saying, Let Miss Zhao do it, it'll be faster. Princess Pingyang put Miss Zhao down and ran to Empress Tensei's side, her face full of concern. Sister. Empress looked at her sister and forced a smile. She suddenly reached out and hugged her sister tightly, whispering, I'm fine, but I'll have to trouble you. Ever since Pingyang could remember, the two sisters had never acted so intimately. She was shocked and embarrassed. Hearing Empress Concubine's words, she asked, What? Empress whispered, Nothing. Nothing. And on the other side, Zhao Yunlong had already given Miss Zhao a concise order. This Russian has something we want in his head. Chao Patao said, Let him speak. Miss Zhao smiled. It's finally time for this young miss to show off her skills. Her eyes flashed with a light blue divine light. That day in the Marquis Jinggon Fu, she had almost been controlled and fused with by the magic tool's soul. Fortunately, Sun Lang had come to her aid. Not only did she manage to keep her life, she also miraculously gained the ability to control the magic tool's mind. This was a very suitable skill for the shrewd and black-bellied girl who liked to play with people's hearts. Through this kind of mental power, she could better manage the Marquis's estate, cleverly gain more advantages in negotiations, and make people who saw her have a better impression of her. This was the most basic operation. If she used her full power, she could use her mental power to invade the target's mind, turning them into an obedient slave, even changing their memories, twisting their personality. This kind of forbidden power, even if Sun Lang did not remind her, she would not easily use it. Because Ms. Zhao understood human nature too well. If there was a first, there would be a second. She knew that she could not resist the temptation of manipulating people's hearts and doing whatever she wanted. But this time, the situation was urgent, so she had to use something fierce. Zhao Feihuang's phoenix eyes opened slightly, the divine light in her eyes like lightning, shooting into Makarov's eyes. She touched the other's soul, probing the target's mind, opening the window to the soul and instilling her own will. She would touch the other's everything, control his thoughts, control his soul. Her mental tentacles were already close to the other's sea of consciousness, close to the most essential soul, the secret hidden in the depths of the soul. Then, she touched a strong and pure azure color. Wait a minute. In an instant, Miss Zhao's mind was greatly shaken. That azure soul suddenly exploded, the fierce counterattack almost injuring her mind. As if she was drunk, Zhao Feihuang retreated several steps, a bit of blood flowing out of her small nose. Zhao Yunlong held her up. What's wrong? Miss Zhao did not care about wiping the blood off her nose. Her eyes widened, her face full of disbelief. She pointed at the kneeling Makarov and said in horror, He's not human. He's a sky demon. Everyone was shocked and shouted at the same time, What? You're also not of the same race as me. Makarov glared. What are you? These words had already confirmed Zhao Feihuang's claim. Among the people, only Empress Tensei understood everything. She muttered, Could it be that inferno? Could it be that this has been planned for a long time? The shocking turn of events threw everyone into chaos. Makarov's eyes lit up with the blue light of the sky demon. It was like two blue flames burning again. It's all for naught. I was recognized. He muttered, I wanted to use this to start a war between the three countries. So be it. After saying that, his entire body split apart and suddenly turned into a ball of azure flames. Like a comet, he charged in the direction of Crown Prince Jinqing's corpse. Chapter 1189. Zhao Yunlong, Lu Shujin, and Princess Pingyang acted at the same time. Even though the three of them were the top experts of the empire, they were still unable to stop this blue flame in time. That burning soul energy was like a rainbow as it plunged into Jinqing's corpse. Blue and golden arcs of light violently shook. Li Jinqing's corpse floated up into the air, and a bright golden light erupted from within his body. A beam of light shot up into the sky, shooting straight into the clear sky. In an instant, lightning flashed, thunder rumbled, and a cold wind blew. Clouds began to swirl in the sky. Dark clouds pressed down on the city, thunder rumbled, and the sky changed color. Fierce winds suddenly blew across the earth, as if the apocalypse had arrived. The Tensei province army, which was resting and on guard, was in an uproar. In the next moment, a dazzling golden light rose from the imperial city. Countless illusory streams of dragon chi soared into the sky, transforming into complex and cryptic characters that connected to each other to form an indestructible barrier. The imperial palace's protective formation had finally been activated. Clearly, this terrifying phenomenon had convinced the hesitant, sword-wielding great eunuch of the civil and martial directorate. The imperial capital was in chaos. Originally, it was only the imperial city that was shaking violently, but now, it seemed to have enveloped the entire capital. Everyone looked up at the sky and could see this uneasy energy gathering. Something terrible was about to happen. Mr. Zhang. Empress looked at this pillar of light that connected heaven and earth and muttered. Zhao Yunlong frowned. What? There's an advisor that the emperor placed here. His whereabouts are mysterious, and his motives are questionable. Just like Makarov, he's able to disintegrate himself. Empress said uneasily, and Li Jinqing's corpse is clearly some sort of key. The emperor must have implanted something in his body, so he took the opportunity just now to send him out. No wonder Li Jinqing wasn't possessed. I thought that he still had some feelings for his father, but I didn't expect. Zhao Yunlong said indifferently, I don't know what's happening in the imperial court, but judging from this earth-shattering aura, it's clear that something incredible is about to be activated. What do you think? Empress's expression suddenly changed. Not good. In the Golden Palace, the fierce battle continued. Sun Lang had been besieged by the civil and military officials of the court for a long time, but his momentum was still like a rainbow, his courage unstoppable. He was like a fighting machine that did not know fatigue. His swift and fierce moves were matched by his endless chatter. He was so talkative that one could not help but suspect that he was relying on flirting to recover his strength. In the words of the American team, I can play all day. He sent the Minister of War flying with 2 palms. Suddenly, he remembered something and said angrily, Damn it, I would have forgotten if you didn't mention it. I haven't watched Women's Federation 4 yet. Li Guangyuan, I'll F***ck your mother. He rushed to the emperor, who was holding 2 holy swords, like an arrow leaving the bow. Li Guangyuan rushed forward without fear, and the other 3 sword masters waved their holy swords and attacked from both sides and behind. Even Sun Lang could not take advantage of the encirclement of the 4 powerhouses. Of course, these people could not do anything to Sun Lang, because the holy sword in their hands were being pulled and interfered with by some mysterious force. Oh, when I was in the Great Barren Mountain, my grandfather lost his money, and I took the opportunity to buy shares. Strictly speaking, I am also half a wild father of the Imperial Army. Sun Lang laughed strangely and said, You want to kill me, just like killing your father. How can you do it? In the ocean of consciousness, the Emperor complained, Why is he so difficult to deal with? If he wasn't difficult to deal with, we would have taken him down in the Great Barren Mountain. This is the last step. Good things come with many setbacks. Calm down, and soon we will get what we want. The devil ancestor Yuan said in a deep voice, Don't be distracted, step by step. Sun Lang avoided the siege of several people and rushed to the crowd, taking advantage of the chaos to knock down several ministers who could not dodge in time. Li Guanyin chased after him with his sword, and at the same time said in the ocean of consciousness, My unfilial son has been out for a while. I am quite worried that he may not be able to deal with that evil creature. The devil was silent for a moment, and then said faintly, "Don't worry, I have arranged everything." Li Guangyuan frowned and said, "What did you arrange?" "You will know soon," the devil said. "Now, don't be distracted." "Hey!" Sun Lang's words once again drilled into everyone's ears. "I have to complain about the current situation again. All of our people are inexplicably controlled by the big villain boss, and I still have to beat down my former teammates and former opponents one by one to save them. The design of this kind of battle mission before the boss level is actually very annoying, and the player's experience is very bad. It reminds me of a silly game called Cry Faraway 5. That game not only has this kind of silly battle plot, but the ending after the game is even more F***king silly." He shouted loudly, "You be *TCH F***CK, your ancestors. You should be F***ked to death by Vivendi." But after shouting, he was even angrier. He immediately turned around and rushed toward Li Guangyuan again. F***CKU. I don't even have the chance to wait for Cry Far Away 6 to be fragrant. The Emperor hurriedly parried, but he was really just a mortal body. Although the demon spirit gave him unparalleled power, his body was no longer young, and his soul had not been tempered 1,000 times. He would be tired, and he would be injured, especially when facing an opponent like Sun Lang. The fatigue of the body was secondary. The weakness of the soul was the most fatal. Is there any way to make him shut up? He always says things that I don't understand. The Emperor said angrily, "I can't take it anymore. How much longer is he going to be noisy?" The devil, who had long been prepared, was speechless at this question. He said helplessly, "I've also endured him for a long time. You can just treat this as his wailing before he is defeated. Speaking of which, where is my dear disciple, His Imperial Highness the Crown Prince?" Sun Lang made a circle in midair and dodged the attacks from a few Emperor weapons. He glanced around and said, "Where is this thing that deceives its master and destroys its ancestor hiding? Your Majesty, do you know?" The Emperor's spirit was lifted. He had been nagged by Sun Lang for a long time. He couldn't win an argument, and he couldn't win an argument because he didn't know where to start. This time, when he talked about Li Jiansheng, he finally had the ammunition to fight back. Did you just find out?" he said coldly. "He has already left the main hall and secretly left the palace. Jiansheng has my seal and can win the trust of the officials in the imperial capital. He will spread the news of your rebellion to the public. He will dispatch an army to flatten Tensei province and capture my rebellious daughter alive. He will also catch her entire family in one fell swoop." Sun Lang didn't panic. He just smiled and said, "Aren't you overestimating your useless son? On the surface, Li Jiansheng has been concealing his strength and biding his time. But in reality, he has developed an inferiority complex. He is a coward on the outside, weak on the inside, sensitive to inferiority complex. His mentality is not firm, and he is not shrewd enough. He can only be played to death by your daughter." This was indeed Li Jiansheng's fatal weakness. The Emperor had been observing the talents of his children all these years, so he knew his children's temperament and abilities like the back of his hand. Of course, he could see the burning flames hidden under Li Jiansheng's magnanimous and gentle appearance. He longed to prove himself and to win. This meant that he couldn't be as steady as Mount Tai, which meant that he might be in a hurry to succeed. This was very dangerous. The Emperor's heart sank when Sun Lang pointed out the most worrying part. Just now, the Golden Hall awakened the spirit of the weapon and possessed all the civil and military officials, but only released Jiansheng. Li Guangyuan did indeed have a little father-son affection. After all, he was his own blood. Later, he sent the Crown Prince to chase Empress Tensei because of the advice of the ancestor the devil. Because he underestimated Sun Lang's combat ability, he had no choice but to use this strategy of deceiving the world and send his useless son to do this big thing. Although this task was not difficult and could even be said to be very stable. In the Emperor's view, Li Jiansheng only needed to rush out of the Golden Hall, use the identity of the Crown Prince, and the token to order the martial arts supervisor to issue an order to order the officials of the martial arts hall and the Ministry of War to enter the palace. Through them, he could mobilize the troops and gather the army to wipe out the rebels in Tensei province and Sun Lang's old and young. There was no difficulty in taking advantage of the situation, but he was still very worried because he knew the extreme and inferior part of Li Jianqing's personality. He also knew how great his daughter was. Just as Sun Lang said, Empress's ability and means were far superior to Jianqing's. If the two were to fight, the crown prince might be played to death. He did not care much about Li Jianqing's life and death. He only cared about the heavenly strategies Empress concubine, the perfect body that he yearned for day and night, and his dream of immortality. This had already become his ultimate obsession. Although he sneered on the surface, he was somewhat uneasy in his heart. He hesitated and said, "Should we?" The devil said in a low voice, "Don't think too much. He is shaking your will." "I know, but what he said is indeed the truth." The emperor said uneasily, "If something really goes wrong," the devil said, "I have already arranged it." Li Guangyuan hesitated and said, "Should we find a way to confirm?" The devil Yuan Zhu suddenly shouted, "I said I have already arranged it." The emperor was shocked. In the sea of consciousness, the devil's consciousness was constantly tumbling and shaking, which reflected the restlessness in the depths of his soul. This was especially strange to Li Guangyan, because in his impression, this ally had always been calm and composed, as if nothing could make him lose control. He asked, "What's wrong with you?" Suddenly, the sky thundered, and there was a faint sound of a dragon's roar outside. Li Guangyuan's expression changed. "This is the activation of the palace protecting array. How did it come to this?" At this moment, the sea of consciousness suddenly boiled. Li Guangyuan swore that he had never seen the devil so excited. He heard a cry that shook the soul, containing a lot of joy, bitterness, and secrets. In the sea of consciousness, the ancestor demon's spirit laughed hoarsely, as if crying with a smile, and a cry that contained thousands of words. "It's done." Chapter 1190. It's done. In the sea of consciousness, the devil ancestor let out an excited roar. The emperor was shocked. Since the implementation of today's plan, the fanatical heart that had been ignited had cooled down a little. Suspicion once again occupied the emperor's brain. He felt a little uneasy and said, "What did you say? What's done?" The devil did not answer him. Only the waves of shock from the sea of consciousness showed the excitement and joy of the partner. It seemed to have waited for this day for a long time. The emperor shouted, "Speak! Make it clear!" What answered him was a monstrous tsunami that swept in the sea of consciousness, containing full dominance and power. It roared at Li Guangyuan in an extremely fierce tone. "Shut up!" Sun Lang stopped. He first looked at the emperor in surprise, then stretched out his hand. In the violent vibration, the thick soil surrounding the golden palace collapsed. The great inner palace-protecting formation had been activated. This protective shield isolated the outside and the inside, which meant that the battlefield suddenly expanded by thousands of times. It was a good thing for Sun Lang, because the space for guerrilla fighting had greatly increased. Now he had a vast space to move around, enough to play with the emperor and ministers who were possessed by the devil. This was the tacit understanding between him and Empress. There was no need for verbal communication. He only needed to send the woman out of the palace, and she would know what to do. Because the woman loved her country deeply, she would never allow the mainstays of the empire to be killed by Sun Lang. She would definitely find a way to reduce the pressure on Sun Lang. Now, the palace-protecting formation had been activated. How cruel, this guy! No matter how he thought about it, there is only one way to force the Forbidden Palace to activate the formation. Only a huge rebellion would cause the arrogant Imperial Guards to defend with all their might. As expected, this woman did not hesitate to abandon her reputation and foundation. She would rather bear the infamy of being a traitor and not be able to make a comeback. She wanted to achieve her goal as quickly as possible. Perhaps Li Jianqing was already dead. Thinking of this, Sun Lang sighed. Although it was within his expectations, he still couldn't help but sigh. In her heart, the most important thing was still the country. However, after all the schemes and sacrifices, in the end, this was the outcome. Did this stubborn woman ever feel regret? At this moment, a painful and distorted cry came from behind. Sun, Lang, outside the imperial city. Makarov's blue comet crashed into Li Jinqing's corpse. An intense pillar of light shot up into the sky. Suddenly, the sky and earth changed color. Wind and clouds gathered, and a fierce wind blew in the imperial capital. It was a terrifying scene of doomsday. Such a thing had never happened in the imperial capital for hundreds of years. Everyone stared blankly at all this, whether it was the powerful martial artists or the lowly commoners. They did not know what had happened, nor did they know what was about to happen. He didn't even know what to do. Only Empress said in shock, "Not good." The next moment, an intense light flashed across the sky. 7 pillars of light shot up into the sky from all over the imperial capital, rushing into the surging dark clouds in the sky. The people living in the imperial capital immediately saw the clue and exclaimed, "It's the 7 sword palaces." The 7 locations where the pillars of light shot up into the sky were where the sword palaces were located. The 7 luminary sword palaces had an extremely long history. They were born almost at the same time as the imperial army. After a war, the Hutu Expeditionary Army brought back the progenitor demon sword, the biggest trophy, to the imperial capital. After forging the other 6 divine swords, the 7 sword palaces immediately rose from the ground. With hundreds of years of accumulation, the number of swords and the number of martial arts recorded could be compared to the libraries of famous sections. The 7 sword palaces were scattered all over the imperial capital, like the 7 eyes of an arrayed diagram, guarding the imperial capital. Regarding the mystery of the distribution of the 7 sword palaces, the profound meaning, the array masters, secret Taoists, and immortals have been arguing for many years. They made far-fetched conclusions, cited classics, and various theories emerged one after another. But today, the mystery that had been debated for hundreds of years finally came to a conclusion. The layout of the 7 sword palaces originated from a huge conspiracy that had been laid out for hundreds of years. And now, the mystery was slowly being revealed. Outside the imperial capital, Empress and the others looked at the sky in shock. The 7 pillars of light reflected each other, and a disturbing power was brewing in the clouds. The huge change caught everyone off guard, and even Zhao Yunlong was helpless. She could only stand there and watch, because she did not even know where the enemy was and what they were doing. But Empress knew. She said sternly, "All soldiers, listen to my order." Before her voice died away, Zhao Fei Huang screamed, Not good." Miss Zhao, who had always been shrewd and would not change her expression even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of her, revealed an expression of shock and even stupefaction. Her entire body trembled, and her eyes trembled as she said in fear, Many things are coming out." Everyone was puzzled. Just as they were about to ask, they were all stunned. There was no need to ask, because the sky was rumbling and lightning flashing. The power of the 7 sword palaces intertwined, weaving a complex and ancient formation in the clouds. A blue ball of light with a long tail of flame behind it soared into the sky, just like the flame that Makarov had turned into when he had just split apart. Then the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th, even 100, 200, 300, 400. Countless blue flames shot into the sky. The 7 pillars of light formed a mysterious array, stirring up the clouds in the sky and drawing in the thousands of blue lights. Countless blue balls of light spun in the clouds amidst the flashing lightning and rumbling thunder. The origin energy from the 7 sword palaces awakened these muddle-headed souls, allowing them to understand the cause and effect, allowing them to remember their previous lives. Then it called them, guided them, and ordered them toward a chance to start anew, toward a second life, toward the persistence of unfulfilled regrets. Zhao Yunlong shouted at Empress. "What is that?" Empress did not seem to hear him. She stared blankly at the sky and muttered, "Demonic artifacts. Are they all the demonic artifacts I've collected, the remnant souls of the sky demon?" Earth-shaking thunder erupted in the sky, louder than any thunder anyone had ever heard in their lives. It was as if a corner of the sky had collapsed, as if a side of the earth had collapsed. The pillars of light rising from the seven-sword palaces suddenly blazed, and the wind and clouds that filled the sky rushed toward the charging horn. The remnant souls of the sky demon that had gathered in the sky and recovered their spirituality and will heard the order. They rushed out of the boiling clouds without hesitation and swooped down from the sky with a howl. Thousands of blue flames raged down like meteors. They rushed out of the clouds and rushed to the ground, circling above this ancient and enormous city. They sensed the calling, and an extreme desire surged from the depths of their souls. They quickly locked onto their targets. There were all kinds of containers scattered on the ground. They were containers whose true purpose had been determined from the beginning of their creation. An ancient and mysterious soul had participated in the creation of these containers. Every single one of them was. Every single one of them was. The Hutu Empire had relied on these national treasures that had suppressed the world for hundreds of years and shocked and angered other countries. They had been secretly marked at the beginning of their creation. The blue flames swam happily and swooped down to the ground. This was the capital of Hutu Empire, where the strongest, most talented, and most promising elites of the empire gathered. The imperial army was the foundation of Hutu Empire, and only the most outstanding people of the country were qualified to wear it. The people in charge of the imperial army were all outstanding people of the empire. At this moment, these warriors of the imperial army were focused on the sky. The strange phenomenon made them feel uneasy. They had relied on the imperial army for too long. The imperial army could give them magical power that transcended the mortal world. The imperial army could give them unlimited courage and confidence. They had already summoned the imperial army and waited for the arrival of danger. No matter what terrifying enemies rushed out of the clouds, they believed that they could win. However, countless blue flames fell from the sky and rushed straight at them. All the attacks fell on empty air, and all the dodging was meaningless. The bewitching blue flames rushed into the emperor weapons that the cultivators never left their side, like swallows returning to the forest. Then, they rushed through the secret door that was left at the beginning of their creation, and through the strong spiritual resonance channel that the imperial army and the warriors had already formed. They rushed into the mind of the host and rushed into the soul of the host. Empress roared, "Abandon the imperial army." But it was meaningless. Even if they were separated physically, the spiritual connection could not be removed. Among the subordinates she brought, there were many warriors of the imperial army. At this moment, these core forces screamed in fear and anger. This was an attack they had never thought of. This was an enemy they had never encountered before. Empress gritted her teeth and roared, "Kill them!" The soldiers of Tensei province, who usually followed orders, hesitated this time. Even the most cold-hearted soldiers could not carry out such an order without hesitation. Empress roared at Zhao Yunlong, Lu Shujin, and the others. Tears flowed down, but her words were without hesitation. "Kill them. Otherwise, they will be devoured by the sky demon and become our enemies. Hurry." These were people who were willing to follow her, even if they were beaten into traitors and fell into a situation of certain death. Not only was she unable to protect their free will, but she also had to personally give the order to execute them. Princess Pingyong held her and said, "Sister." Zhao Yunlong and Lu Shujin looked at each other and said, "Let's end this quickly. Let's kill them first." The two rushed out at the same time, their figures like lightning. The people of Tensei province consciously formed a circle. Inluo and Courier raised their weapons and were on guard, but Empress was just dazed. She had suffered too many blows. Even if the dozens of subordinates in front of her were restrained, what could she do? She looked at the blue shooting stars falling from the sky. Each one corresponded to an imperial army, and each one meant a possession. Every warrior of the imperial army was in danger. The most powerful group of people in the capital would become the Sky Demon, and the powerful imperial army would become the sharp blade of the master. An unprecedented catastrophe was unavoidable. When the most outstanding people in the capital could not even protect themselves, who could stop and save all of this? Chapter 1191. Inside the Imperial Palace. Shut up. The devil's roar set off huge waves in the sea of consciousness. Even if the emperor had already lost his mind, he should have noticed that something was wrong. The devil was as patient and peaceful as he was before, and now he was as irritable and cruel as he was. It was as if he had finally succeeded after a long period of hypocrisy and civility. He threw away all the hypocrisy and evil that had accumulated in the depths of his heart before, because a long period of disguise was really too tiring. In other words, the devil had carried out some kind of unspeakable conspiracy and plan behind his back. And now, it seemed that he had succeeded. That was why he had shed all pretense of cordiality, yelled at him, and ignored his inquiry. The emperor was both shocked and angry. Things had gone beyond his expectations for the second time. At first, he had misjudged Sun Lang's fighting strength. He did not expect that the traitor could be in an invincible position under the siege of the four-sword saints and the civil and military officials of the court. But this was nothing. The courage of a simple man would always be the courage of a simple man. The road to immortality was right in front of him, and he was not stingy with his last bit of patience. Just as the devil had suggested and comforted him, as long as he could delay Sun Lang and achieve the success of the plan, then it would be a success. But after the success, there was another change. This time, the change was the devil. This was the most fatal. One had to know that the artifact spirit of the Providence Devil Sword was his only and most trusted partner. Many of his plans were not known to the emperor's concubine, but the devil spirit knew them clearly. This ancient devil spirit had made many reliable plans for him, helping him advance on the path of immortality. If the other party also had other plans and harbored evil intentions, then the damage caused would be too great. Those who are not of my race must have a different heart, the emperor said gloomily. Sun Lang's ravings are innumerable, but only this sentence suits me the most. I don't know what you are doing in private, but I want to warn you, don't think that you can play me in the palm of your hand with a little cleverness. It's not too late to turn back now. Fiend Spirit sneered and said, still putting on an act? Li Guan Yuan, although you and I are in a relationship of mutual benefit, and humans are also my enemies, I must say that I despise you. Countless warriors have risked their lives for the Li family's country. Countless subjects have lost their lives in vain because of the weakness and incompetence of the Li family. Your country has paid a heavy price to win back the hard-won peace. But as their leader, you have made a deal with the extraterrestrial devils that they hate and are absolutely irreconcilable with. As the monarch of the Imperium, you should be a patriot who sticks to the end. But you have long been colluding with the foreign enemies and even risking the entire country as a stake for the deal, he proudly said. Having a monarch like you is the eternal shame of your entire country. Li Guan Yuan was shocked and angry at the same time. His heart was cold. It had been a long time since someone had reprimanded him on a moral level. The person who did this was actually his partner, the spirit of the Sky Demon. It was really a bit of black humor. He gloomily said, I think you have been brainwashed by Sun Lang. The nature of this world is not as shallow and childish as he thinks. Moreover, as a spirit of a sword that has been curled up in the sword for thousands of years and has not truly lived in the world, do you have the right to criticize me? The devil let out a mocking laugh. What a pitiful person. What a tragedy. What a joke. In the end, you don't understand anything. It's said with pity, well, dying with resentment, bewilderment, and incompetence is a way to die worthy of a human scum like you. You can welcome your doomsday like this without knowing anything. Aren't you happy too early? The emperor sternly said, I am warning you for the last time. You have made a mistake. I can let bygones be bygones. I can completely forget what you have said today. As long as you immediately stop and continue our cooperation according to the original plan, what I have promised you before will still be counted. I will not go back on my word." The devil coldly laughed. "At this time, you still want to maintain the dignity of an emperor? Don't you think you are ridiculous right now? Would you believe what I said about letting bygones be bygones? Your temperament is sinister and cruel. You are extremely suspicious. You are stingy when you give someone your first trust. How can you trust someone who has betrayed you a second time? Given your temperament, I have offended you like this. Would you kindly ask me to stop? That can't be right. Given your majesty's methods and temperament, how can you be so kind?" The emperor coldly said, "I'm only giving you one last chance. No, you're only fierce on the outside, but weak on the inside." The devil said, "You are afraid. You are timid. You are wavering. You are afraid." The emperor did not say anything. The devil ancestor continued to speak. "In order to deal with Sun Lang, you have already disregarded everything. The ministers have been possessed, the state's top secrets have been betrayed, and the fact that the empire has lost the ability to create an imperial army has been exposed. All this is for your dream of a long life. If you lose everything, how will you face this mess? Angry ministers, children who have turned against each other, disappointed subjects, a bleak future for the country and your ancestors. Do you dare to face all this?" He counted them one by one and smiled cruelly. "You have paid so much for a long life. If you lose everything at this time, can you accept it? Can you afford to lose? Wake up, Li Guangyuan. You have nothing left. Other than begging me to save you, you have no other way." In the sea of consciousness, every time the devil said a word, the emperor's soul was in turmoil. In the spiritual world, he could no longer disguise his emotions by his appearance. All the emotional changes were infinitely magnified. In the end, Li Guangyuan's emotions erupted like a flash flood. "You bastard!" he roared. Evil creature, traitor who deserves to be hacked to pieces. How dare you? I have never treated you unfairly. I have given you the most precious trust. I have racked my brains with you. I have cooperated with you. We each take what we need. How can you do this? How can you do this?" The emperor was like a furious lion, scolding and venting almost crazily. The road to a long life was full of obstacles. He had been prepared for it. He believed that he could cut through all the obstacles and overcome all the difficulties. But now it seemed that the biggest hidden danger came from the beginning and was actually by his side. This was a difficulty that he could not overcome alone in any case. Facing Li Guangyuan's madness and hysteria, the devil was very happy. Yes, that's right. Why don't you show all the uneasiness and fear in your heart? Kneel to me, beg me, throw away all your dignity, use all your skills to please me, beg me to be merciful, beg me to spare your life. In this way, I can consider letting you go. Think about it. Do you have any other way?" His voice suddenly became louder. In the vast sea of consciousness, the black flames suddenly expanded, setting off huge waves. It was like a terrifying giant that stood between heaven and earth, staring at the emperor's soul. The devil's voice was full of viciousness and pleasure. "Kneel to me, obey me, beg me, become my slave. If so, I will spare your life." The black giant opened its mouth and roared, turning into a storm that swept through the soul. It was full of majesty and power, shaking the emperor's soul in the spiritual world. "Kneel down," he angrily roared, trying to tame the emperor of the Huda earth. The roars were like thunder, exploding in Li Guangyuan's soul one after another. It made him tremble, it made him go crazy, it made him panic. It brainwashed him, convinced him, and tempted him. You already have no way to escape. Today will be your last day. The black giant said this. Be loyal to me, obey me, this is the only way out. Otherwise, I have 100 ways to deal with you. He threatened. I will put your soul in a cage. I will let you watch the destruction of your country. I will let you watch the collapse of the Hutu Earth Temple. I will let you watch as your country is destroyed. Then, I will hand you over to your remaining people. Or even more directly, I will give you to Sun Lang right now and let him deal with you. Think about how he will deal with you. New grudges and old grudges. You made him leave his home. You made him come here to fight and suffer. You made him be betrayed by the people closest to him in the great desolate mountain. You made him lose everything. Think about how he will deal with you. The attack of the spiritual world continued to break down the emperor's defenses. The black giant stretched out countless black tentacles, slowly reaching out towards Li Guangyuan's source spirit. It wanted Li Guangyuan to submit. This seemed like a very important part, and Li Guangyuan would submit. He had already lost everything. He had no other path to take. As a king, he had betrayed his country and could never turn back. The devil shouted, "Obey me, beg me, kneel down." After that, the entire sea of consciousness was filled with a golden glow, just like the sun shining down. A roar rang out. Wishful thinking. Another golden giant appeared in the sea of consciousness, facing off against the devil's giant. This was the emperor's spiritual manifestation. He looked at the devil, but he no longer had the madness and stubbornness from before. Rather, he was like a piece of ice, so cold that it made people afraid. The devil was surprised, but then he said in a sharp voice, "You still want to resist? Do you understand? You have already lost everything. Even if you can escape from my hands, Sun Lang will not let you go. Do you understand?" From your shouting and words before, this one only understood one thing. The emperor slowly said, "That is that you have been plotting for a long time, and you have a large amount of malice and enmity towards this one. You are right about one thing. This one is very suspicious and sinister. I am stingy with giving people the first trust. I will not give a second trust to a traitor. Your words and actions just now have confirmed this one's thoughts. Our cooperation is officially broken, and there is no possibility of recovery. Even if you beg me for mercy, this one can no longer believe you, because you will definitely bite me again." The devil was startled, and then he laughed wildly. "Beg you for mercy? Are you kidding me? This one never jokes." The emperor said coldly, "But shouldn't you think about it? When did you have the illusion that this one will not leave any countermeasures and cooperate with you?" The devil was startled, and then he sneered. "Are you talking about those ridiculous arrangements? Not those. Those were only used to numb you. How could I possibly let you know about the true methods to counter you? Hundreds of years ago, the sages of the empire used you to forge the first emperor weapon. They were all wise men who never appeared in the world. How could they possibly believe in you, the spirit of the demon sword? The countermeasures used to deal with you have been prepared hundreds of years ago. The people of Hutu can control and use the demon sword, and they also have a way to deal with you." The emperor was silent for a moment, and then he sighed softly. "It's just a pity, this one's dream of immortality." The spiritual world suddenly became bright. In reality, the emperor's eyes flashed with a cold light. The devil had an extremely bad premonition. He shouted loudly, and the black giant turned into a dancing black color. It wrapped around the emperor, fighting for the control of the body. At this time, the emperor was connected to the Hutu holy sword, and the two spirits merged. In terms of the quality of the soul, the emperor was naturally not as good as the devil. Immediately, the control of the body was snatched away, but he still mustered up his courage and shouted with difficulty, "Sun Lang." Sun Lang was looking at the flying dragon aura in a daze. Hearing this, he turned around in surprise. In the sea of consciousness, the devil's voice had a trace of panic. He didn't know what the emperor was going to do, but he did feel a great danger. He didn't expect the emperor to be so decisive. "Do you think he will appreciate it? He will kill you all the same." Mo Ling shouted, "You know better than me what kind of person he is. If I die, you won't be able to live either. At that time, no one will be able to protect you no matter where you go. After you and I die, Sun Lang will be uncontrollable. Not only will all the schemes be destroyed, but your country will also fall into the hands of Sun Lang. Are you willing?" "Stop, Emperor, we can talk." "I know. I don't need you to remind me." Li Guangyuan said gloomily, "You mocked me before and questioned my tolerance as a king. Today, I will give you a sad and boring spirit, the last lesson, and let you understand what a real emperor is. Do you know why the emperor is called a loner? Because the emperor is always alone. No one can understand him, and he won't easily trust others. He has few friends, and even fewer like-minded friends. So he hates betrayal and is sinister because of loneliness. To put it simply, I would rather leave this country to Sun Lang, this traitor, than let you, this two-faced, despicable, and hateful sky demon, live a comfortable life. Let's go our separate ways now. In the sea of consciousness, the Emperor's aura suddenly rose, and he temporarily broke free from the devil's control with amazing willpower. He was mean, merciless, sinister, suspicious, and narrow-minded. He was a complete bad person, a selfish and cruel tyrant, but he was not weak, nor was he a coward. Li Guangyuan gained a short time to breathe. He controlled his body and shouted with all his strength, "Sun Lang, the key to killing it is the sword mark of the back earth sword." Chapter 1192. Sun Lang, the key to killing it lies in the sword seal of the back earth sword. The emperor gritted his teeth and said such words. Sun Lang was stunned at first, then raised his eyebrows and said, "Why? Did you break up with your venom?" But Li Guangyuan could not say anything more. After all, he was just a human. No matter how strong his will was, it was difficult to resist the mental erosion of the ancestor demon spirit. His eyes rolled back, and his whole body trembled as he retreated. His face was full of pain and struggle, and he looked very sad. How warm-hearted and helpful Sun Lang was. Seeing the emperor's face full of pain, he subconsciously wanted to help him out of his suffering. He did not care what that sentence meant. He immediately rushed forward, swung his right hand, and slammed down on the top of Li Guangyuan's head. Unfortunately, with a flash of sword light, the two swords of Jin Xing and Sui Xing were crossed and reversed, blocking Sun Lang's attack path. The emperor staggered back, raised his eyebrows, and smiled. "This body is still useful. I can't let you break it." Sun Lang's sneak attack failed, and he turned back. Hearing the words, he frowned for a moment and guessed the cause and effect. He sneered, "A dog can't change its habit of eating shit, and the other knows that a dog eats shit but still goes to look for food with it. You two are really perfect. You are a good match." Li Guangyuan's face flashed with a green aura, the demonic radiance constantly changing. This was because the emperor's spirit was still resisting and struggling. Although the demonic spirit was able to suppress the emperor's spirit, it was unable to destroy it in a short period of time. This was because the exclusive cultivation method that the emperor had cultivated for hundreds of years was not known for its killing power. But in terms of prolonging one's life and nourishing one's spirit, it was a first-class wonder. Hundreds of years ago, the sages and heroes who used the ancestor demon sword to build the imperial army and set the strategy of strengthening the country had long imagined many hidden dangers and made preventive measures one by one. Designing and modifying special cultivation techniques for rulers was one of the preventive measures. However, the purpose of this measure was to strengthen the spirit of the emperor through the cultivation of Yuangong, strengthen his will, clear his spirituality, and prevent the emperor from being bewitched, seduced, or even devoured by the evil intentions of the devil. Perhaps it was because the world was too prosperous at that time, or perhaps it was because the emperor at that time was too wise, but none of the sages would have thought that the emperor of the later generation would take the initiative to make a deal with the sky demon for the sake of immortality. The human heart was fickle, and the mortal body was hard to guard. Selfish desires were born, and evil thoughts were born. The evil heart and malice born from the demonic barrier of madness and obsession could not be resolved by any miraculous cultivation method. He reaped what he sowed. Sun Lang's eyes were like torches. With a sweep of his gaze, he clearly saw the intense battle inside the emperor's body. There was no joy or sorrow on his face as he pondered the meaning of the emperor's words. It seemed that Li Guangyuan and the devil had fallen out. These two idiots had partnered up to start business. The devil saw that the company was about to be listed and its prospects were great, so he wanted to kick Li Guangyuan out of the board of directors. You can kick him out if you want, but you even want to take the shares in Li Guangyuan's hands. That's too much. And the emperor was clearly not to be trifled with. When he saw that there was no hope of turning the tables, and that the chances of victory were slim, he wanted to perish together with the devil. He had the attitude that even if he died, he would not let the devil have an easy time. He even revealed the key to victory to his enemy, Sun Lang. However, time was tight, and there was no time to go into detail. He only had time to say one sentence. One sentence was enough. Sun Lang had to admit that although the emperor was sinister, evil, and shameless, in terms of talent and temperament, he was top-notch. He was worthy of the title of mighty ruler. Such a mighty ruler was sinister and cunning, and he was quick-witted. The words he shouted in an emergency might contain a lot of information. Sun Lang. The key to killing it is the sword mark of the back earth sword. Sword mark. The 7 luminaries' sacred sword all had a sword mark. The so-called sword mark was a token produced when the sacred sword was forged. It was like a permission switch used to balance the power of the 7 luminaries' sacred sword. For example, a few days ago, when Hikari Kensei Wei Shiha crazily slaughtered the Empire's soldiers, the martial arts hall masters who came to suppress him took out the Sun Luminary's sacred sword's sword mark and immediately sealed the Sun Luminary's sacred sword's Sunfire Divine Light. Then, they worked together to beat Wei Shiha half to death, tied him up, and dragged him back. Although the 7 Luminary Sword Saint was still a top-notch martial artist without the sacred sword, he was not undefeatable. This was the significance of the sword mark. But the key problem was that the 6 luminaries of sun, moon, metal, wood, water, and fire were all forged later, so it was not surprising that they had a sword mark. However, the Earth Luminary's sacred sword was the peerless, demonic sword used by the ancestor of the origin, the Sky Demon. Did this sacred sword also have a sword mark to balance it? At least, Sun Lang had never heard of such a thing. He had been with the devil for 6 years and exchanged memories with him in the battle of the Great Desolate Mountain. He had never heard of any sword mark of the back Earth sacred sword. What was going on? Even the devil did not know. Could it be that the forerunners of the Empire secretly forged one a few hundred years ago without the devil's knowledge? Sun Lang pondered for a moment, but still could not figure it out. He looked at the devil. The devil had gradually controlled Li Guangyuan's struggle. At this moment, he was also puzzled. Sun Lang suddenly laughed. The devil glared at him. What are you laughing at? It's like this. Sun Lang waved his hand. Ah Gao, you have never been a human, so you don't have any experience in managing expressions. Just like now, you have occupied the body of a living person, but you don't know how to hide your thoughts, so all the emotions in your heart are honestly reflected on your face. For example, now this surprised and doubtful little expression is like a little girl whose private photos have been taken by a pervert. That kind of panicked emotion of, oh, when was this taken? But you have to pretend to be calm. It's just that it's disgusting to put on this kind of expression with Li Guangyuan's face. The devil heard this and immediately put on a straight face. Sun Lang chuckled again. The devil ancestor of the origin frowned. Don't laugh. Sun Lang laughed even more happily. He said with a smile, So, when was your nude photo taken? Was it tampered with? It's really not honest. Hutu and the others not only copied other people's products, but also opened a back door on your original product. Wow, it must be very uncomfortable to have the back door opened. The devil kept a straight face and let Sun Lang talk nonsense. After a while, a smile appeared on his face. You don't have to trick me. We have exchanged memories. You know whether there is such a thing or not. Why ask me? Sun Lang spread out his hands and said, In fact, I am a little suspicious. Did you tamper with the memory exchange at that time? For example, the content of your secret discussion with the Emperor was somewhat vague and specious and other. Alas, thousands of years of memories almost made me doubt life. Later, I also forgot a lot. Maybe the relevant memories were ignored by me. Can you tell me more? The devil shook his head and said, To tell you the truth, I don't know about the sword seal. Sun Lang was still smiling. I don't believe it. It's up to you to believe it or not. The devil raised his head and looked at the protective shield that rose over the imperial city. The golden dragon aura blocked everything outside. He said slowly, "Sun Lang, do you know what happened outside? I guess it's not a good thing." Sun Lang said, "Now it seems that you and Li Guangyuan were feigning civility and wanted to achieve your goals secretly. Since you have fallen out with the Emperor, it means that your trick has succeeded and you can kick him away. That's why you can't wait to let go of yourself. As for what you have done, it's not hard to guess if you think about it carefully." His voice gradually became cold. "It is the remnant soul of the sky demon that has taken over the bodies of the ministers in the court. There are hundreds of them, and there will be thousands of them. I thought that the remnant soul attaching to the magic item was just an example. Now it seems that I was wrong. This is probably an act of seeking survival in the midst of death. It's really impressive. I beat you half to death in the Great Desolate Mountain, but you still managed to struggle." The devil said indifferently, "What's so impressive about struggling half to death?" "Sun Lang, you guessed right. Right now, there are tens of thousands of souls in the sky above the imperial city. The warriors of the imperial army gathered in the capital are the new bodies I prepared for my people. The warriors will be reborn with new faces and complete their unfinished business." Sun Lang clicked his tongue and said, "I don't want to say this, but according to the plot, your method is too villainous. It's almost destined to fail. Don't you think so?" The devil Sun Ran said, "Reality is not a story. We have already succeeded." Sun Lang said proudly, "Who said so?" It was such a simple question, but the devil, who had succeeded and was full of himself, was speechless. Yes, who said so? Because Sun Lang was still standing there. The terrifying battle record in the Great Desolate Mountain proved that even if he was alone, he could completely ruin this plan. The sky demon who had died in the Great Desolate Mountain could testify that if Sun Lang could kill them once, he could kill them a second time. After a long while, the devil let out a hoarse laugh. "Yes, you're right." His tone became serious and solemn. "Even now, I have to admit that you are still stronger. You are a great warrior. Even in my long life, in the endless history of the sacred race, it is difficult to find a warrior like you. Even if you are an enemy, you deserve the respect and even reverence of our entire race." He said in a deep voice, "So, Sun Lang, let's make a deal. We actually don't have to fight. I admit that even if our clansmen use the bodies of martial artists to revive, we are still not your match. If you go all out and kill us, we will not be able to resist. Even if we can beat you back for a while, we will have to endure your endless harassment and hunting, not to mention any great cause. But you must also remember that no matter how strong you are still only one person. You may be able to protect yourself and look down on everything, but what about your subordinates? We're your loved ones. We can't stop you, and you can't stop us. And the most important problem is that there is no need for us to fight." Sun Lang coldly said no. The devil shook his head. "No, you're not a person of this world. You came here to fight for humanity because of their selfishness and cruelty. You are a victim, just like me. There is no enmity between us. I understand you very well, and I also understand your pain. Look at the people of this world. Look at Li Guangyuan, who reaped what he sowed. These pitiful people, how could they have the right to make you fight for them? Look at these ministers. A few days ago, they were still scolding you. And the people of the entire imperial capital, who knows about your achievements? Who knows about the grievances you suffered in the Great Desolate Mountain? Who knows that the so-called battle of the Great Desolate Mountain was won by you alone? No one knows that your achievements, your pain, have all been forgotten and erased. So, why do we have to fight? There's no need for us to fight. If we fight each other, both sides will only suffer. Your subordinates, your lovers, will all be safe as long as we reconcile. And if we reconcile, both of us will receive great benefits." Facing the devil's sincere speech, Sun Lang raised his eyebrows. "Wait," he sneered. "Benefits? I still have benefits?" The devil solemnly said, "Yes, great benefits." Sun Lang pretended to be very surprised. "Wow, I'm looking forward to it. What kind of benefits? Don't tell me you want me to be the king of humanity?" So exciting. The devil shook his head. No, you are wrong. There are even greater benefits than this. Sun Lang said warily, You don't want me to be your boss, do you? No. The devil said, We can let you go home. Chapter 1193. We can let you go home. The devil said so. Go home. It was not referring to Summer Prefecture or Jinling. It was Jia Ying's home. Although the knot in Sun Lang's heart had been resolved by the Dowager Duchess, Rongwa Mansion could at best be regarded as his second home. His true home was not here. He had the most wonderful personal experience in the world. He came from another world, a place called Earth. Only a few people in the world knew this secret, and the devil was clearly one of them. Because in those 6 years filled with iron and blood, it was the Hoodoo holy sword that gave Sun Lang the strength to live. Back then, Sun Lang and the devil depended on each other for survival and regarded him as a friend. He could confide in him all his worries and share all his secrets with him. At that time, they were indeed good friends who could talk about anything. So in the great desolate mountain, Sun Lang almost lost his mind and became incomparably crazy. Bai Yue, who was also his teacher and father, Empress, who he loved all his life, and the devil, his close friend who depended on each other for survival. These 3 people had ruthlessly stabbed him together. These 3 people had given him hope and had once been deeply trusted and relied on by his son Lang. Among them, the devil was the most important. So the devil knew Sun Lang's origins, the situation of his hometown, and even many, many things on Earth. There was one thing he was right about. The devil was indeed the person in the world who could understand and feel the pain that Sun Lang endured and carried the most. Now, he was telling Sun Lang that he had a way to let Sun Lang go home. Sun Lang quickly realized what the devil was saying. From the beginning until now, he had always faced the devil with a leisurely and calm attitude. His face was full of smiles, and his mouth was full of nonsense. He had never truly shown anger and hatred. But now, the smile on his face immediately disappeared and was covered with frost. Bullshit, he shouted resolutely and decisively. His sharp killing intent surged out, and a dangerous aura spread out. Do you think I'm a 3-year-old child? You and I have exchanged memories. You have seen the ability of my race with your own eyes. The devil calmly said, In the fantasy creations of your race, long-distance interstellar travel is based on warp drive, hyperspace jump, wormhole travel, and so on. This is the future hypothesis made based on the technological path of your civilization. Our path is different from yours. But in this vast universe, the top great Tao are connected. It's just that the way of understanding and elaboration are different. And I can tell you clearly that with our skills and abilities, sending you home is not a very difficult thing, because we have also crossed a long distance to come here. Moreover, he said indifferently, Don't forget how you came here. Sun Lang's heart. How could he forget? That was the beginning of all the pain and nightmares. The War of Tianyuan was in an emergency. Empress secretly searched for the qualified sword master of the earth under the emperor's instruction. Jia Ying, who ran away from home and secretly joined the army, participated in the plan in confusion. She overcame all the difficulties and came to the front of the national treasure. If he gained the recognition of the holy sword, the family of Rongwa would be glorious. The family foundation that seemed to be on the verge of collapse due to the death of all the men in the family would immediately be stabilized. Most importantly, if he succeeded, Sun Lang would not have come to this world at all. Sun Lang would have lived an ordinary life on Earth. If the historical progress of human civilization was not good enough, or if it was good enough, he would still have the opportunity to witness some drastic changes in his middle age and even participate in the most intense changes of the civilization. That would be the moment when human beings were closest to their destiny. In any case, if Jia Ying lived and gained a recognition of the Holy Sword, the fate of Sun Lang and this world would become 2 parallel lines that would never intersect. But Jia Ying died. In the end, he fell at the moment before the victory and could not comfort his family who were worried about and loved him. They had spent a lot of effort and time, but they had failed in the end. Whether it was Empress or the participants of the plan, they could not accept such a result. They were unwilling to fail. They wanted to use the soul-gathering technique to set up the seven-star lamp, to gather Jia Ying's soul again and pull him out of the gates of hell. But perhaps there was a mistake in the array, or perhaps there was some wonderful coincidence. The gathered energy could not find Jia Ying's soul, but it broke through time and space and pulled Sun Lang to this world. But now the devil said that he had a way to let Sun Lang go home. Sun Lang's eyes changed intensely. The devil said calmly, "You should know that the core of the soul-gathering technique is the holy sword. Since it could pull him over, it could also send him back." That made sense. Sun Lang's hand trembled slightly. For a swordsman with unparalleled swordsmanship, the trembling of his hand could reflect the great waves in his heart. He clenched his hand twice, and sharp sword chi began to gather. Clearly, he was using powerful hostility to cover up the shock and unease in his heart. The devil said softly, "There's no need for that. I'm very sincere." Sun Lang sneered, "How strange. In the great desolate mountain, you and the Emperor worked together to stab me. Just now, right in front of me, you stabbed the Emperor who was in cahoots with you. After doing all this, you still have the face to say that you're very sincere. Although that's Li Guangyuan's face, do you really not feel the slightest bit of shame?" "Of course not." The devil righteously ignored Sun Lang's mockery. He said, "In my view, the foundation of a contract and an alliance does not lie in the so-called moral integrity and morality, but in the strength of the contract partner. Now, Li Guangyuan is all alone and is not worthy of making a deal with me, so I kicked him on one side. And in the great desolate mountain, I misjudged your strength and chose to work together with Li Guangyuan. For this, I paid a heavy price, so much so that I'm still trying to make up for it all." He said sincerely, "Obviously, your strength has already gained my recognition and respect, so you don't need to question my sincerity in keeping my promise. In my opinion, if I fight you, I will have to pay a heavy price, and there will be countless variables. Most importantly, dealing with you won't bring me any benefits, so I naturally don't need to fight you to the point where both sides will suffer. Sending you away politely is the best choice." He said seriously, "Think about it, Sun Lang. We really don't need to fight this battle. Although I can't do anything to you, many of your friends are still here. You can go and check. They've only been knocked unconscious and not possessed. This is my sincerity. And if you insist on fighting, they will definitely be injured or even killed in the chaotic battle. No matter how strong you are, you can't protect everyone at the same time. If you agree to stop, then you can take these people away. You can take them anywhere. If you want to take them back to Earth, I can't ask for anything more. If you want to keep them here, I'll find a way to ensure their safety." Sun Lang raised his eyebrows and said, "Then, the Hotu Empire will be yours." The devil opened his hands and looked at the dragon robe on his body. "Right now, I am Li Guangyuan. The civil and military officials are still the civil and military officials, and the Imperial Army warriors are still the Imperial Army warriors. Nothing has happened to the Empire today. All of this can no longer be reversed. The Empire is indeed already ours." He asked curiously, "Why? Are you still interested in the power of the Empire?" "Of course, this can be discussed. The power of the country, endless wealth, countless women. I can give you as many as you want. We can share this country and even the entire world together because our interests and demands do not conflict. I know your personality. You are not keen on ruling. You prefer to play freely. This is not a problem. I can give your former subordinates and friends high positions and endless glory. The people you care about will live happily, and you can play freely in the world. Think about it. Everything will be the same as before. We are now living in the form of humans and controlling this country. Therefore, we also have a responsibility to this country. There is no need for us to destroy it, because we have already conquered it." Sun Lang, everything will be the same as before. The only difference is that the king of this country will no longer be hostile to you. He will respect you, he will revere you, and he will share the power and everything in this country with you. Believe me, You will get more because you have great power. You don't need to bear any responsibility and will receive supreme privileges. Is there anything more wonderful than this? The devil guided him patiently. Of course, you can also choose to go home. After you have played enough, you can go back. In fact, we can even consider building a stable two-way teleportation portal. He whispered, think about it. Now, you are invincible and omnipotent. However, your hometown is full of mortals. They have no talent and can only rely on external objects. Although they have made amazing achievements, their weaknesses are too obvious. They have no concept of mysterious power, and they will never think that a person can have the terrifying power to move mountains and seas. To them, you're no different from a god in the world. Think about it. Now that you're back on Earth, what can you do? You can do whatever you want. You can silently manipulate politicians and rule the world. You can also play as a superhuman in your hometown that you're more familiar with. Whether Hillary has been to the Slave Island or not, if you want to know such a small thing, you will definitely know. Yoshihiro Fukin plays mahjong and slacks off every day. You can directly use a secret spiritual technique to turn him into a fool who can feel extreme happiness as long as he paints. You used to be envious of the extravagant and luxurious lives of those top rich people. If you want, you can even become a modern emperor. All the secrets in the world will be open to you. All the material and spiritual wealth created by the prosperous modern society will be yours to take. When it comes to all kinds of enjoyment, your hometown is better. Are you not tempted at all? The devil was like a demon who bewitched people, throwing out one temptation after another. It sounds very good. Sun Lang smiled. However, you are really talkative today. I want to know, is it because you are really sincere or because you feel fear? The devil frowned. I have already said it very clearly. You are still very concerned about the sword seal, right? You don't know what kind of back door the people of the Empire left behind hundreds of years ago. You're also worried that if I find the sword seal, I will mercilessly kill you. Sun Lang said, so, how do I know that you are telling the truth and not a perfunctory lie to fool me? Maybe you just want to temporarily calm me down. After interrogating Li Guangyuan and finding out that the sword seal was destroyed, you will fall out with me. After all, you have a criminal record. I have to be careful this time. The devil said helplessly, even if I destroy the so-called sword seal, your power is still a huge threat. How can I fall out with you? There is no benefit in that. What will make you believe me? Let me think. Sun Lang pondered for a moment and suddenly said, I got it. The devil's expression changed and his attention was attracted. He heard Sun Lang shout, Wei Shihe, throw the sword seal over. Wei Shihe, who was following behind the devil, had already been possessed, so his reaction was half a beat slower. Hearing these words, he was dumbfounded. The devil's body suddenly trembled, and he subconsciously turned his head. Sun Lang raised his hand and pointed. Sword Chi, incomparably sharp, went straight for the devil's head. With a sharp whistle, the devil swung his sword to block. The sword Chi brushed past the body of the sacred sword and shot off into the distance. It shot out over 100 jong without slowing down. From this, one could see the ruthlessness and viciousness of Sun Lang's move. The devil shouted, What do you want to do? Sun Lang retracted his hand and said with a silly smile, I was just joking. I was just trying to scare you. All right. I'm very interested in your proposal. It really hits the nail on the head. Let's discuss the specific details. For example, I think you can help me organize a talent show and outside the Xuanwu Gate. Empress was in a daze. Zhao Yunlong and Lu Shuzhen had restrained the elites of Tensei province who had been possessed by the devil. Everyone's weapons had been taken away, and they had been beaten until they fainted. They had been heavily restrained. The soldiers of Tensei province formed groups of several people and were using all kinds of iron chains to bind their companions inside and out. But this was only a few dozen people. In the sky of the imperial capital, blue flames kept falling. Each flame represented a restless sky demon soul. They circled like eagles and swooped down after finding a target. They pounced on the target that was almost defenseless. Soon, thousands of warriors of the imperial army in the imperial capital would become sky demons. Everyone was at their wits' end. This was indeed the greatest calamity that could not be undone. The empire had relied on the imperial army for a very, very long time. Not only was this catastrophe unable to be resolved by the imperial army had even become the source of danger. Everyone was at their wits' end. At this moment, Princess Pingyang's expression changed. She looked up and saw a sword chi break through the dragon chi protecting the palace and rush out of the Xuanwu Gate. Chapter 1194. A beam of sword chi broke through the dragon chi protecting the palace and rushed out of the Xuanwu Gate. Princess Pingyang raised her hand, and a power of the same origin as the Hutu sword appeared. The sword chi immediately sensed it and changed direction in midair, shooting toward the princess. This must be a message from Master. The princess smiled reassuringly. In this dangerous situation, the only person they could rely on had not abandoned them. Everyone was moved, and even the dejected empress turned around. The specters of the sky demon were hovering over the capital, and warriors of the imperial army were being possessed every moment. The elites of the upper class of the empire gathered in the capital were about to be wiped out. At this most dangerous moment, even Empress Tensei had to admit that Sun Lang was their last hope. The dazzling sword light slowed down and descended toward Princess Pingyang. Under everyone's eager gazes, the sword chi that had broken out of the palace turned into a hand and fiercely flicked Princess Pingyang's forehead. The princess let out an aggrieved cry of pain, and a red mark appeared on her smooth forehead. She held her forehead and looked at the ground. After the sword chi had carried out its punishment, it immediately scattered into countless tiny sword chi and fell to the ground like a waterfall, forming lines of words. Everyone gathered around. The first line of words was written in bold and flamboyant strokes. Just you wait. Yin Luo and Miss Zhao stuck out their tongues. Then came the second paragraph. I shot the sword chi in the direction of the Xuanwu Gate and told Xiao Patao to flee if something unexpected happened. Since you were able to stop me, it means that you are running around again, and it also means that Hutu is not destined to die yet. Forget it. Regardless of whether Hutu is destined to die or not, Pongji and the others are in the palace. If I leave now, they will definitely be harmed by the sky demon. I must stay and deal with the devil. Pingyang, the way to deal with the sword spirit of the Hutu, sword lies in the sword mark of the Hutu's sword. This is what your imperial father said. Although I don't know about the sword mark, since your imperial father said so, he definitely has his reasons. I can only guess that you know, because back in the palace, it was your imperial father who took the initiative to send you to my side. If this is a backup plan he left behind, everything seems to make sense. If you don't know what the sword seal is, then don't mention it. Immediately think of a way to get out of the capital and head north until you reach Mingzhou. I will meet you there, and then we will slowly plan. If you know what the sword seal is, then discuss with your sister and think of a way to kill the devil. If the sword seal is with you, then it will be best. If not, if you need to fight, then let's go fight. Although I hope that you don't get involved in this mess, you must have your own ideas and ideas. Although I don't have a good impression of this country, if I just leave, you will be very disappointed. So, go all out, but you must protect yourselves. You are the most important. By the way, tell your sister that if you are hurt, even if she saves this country in the end, it will be useless. The writing ends here. Everyone stared at the lines of words for a long time without saying anything. As a foreign friend, Courier was the first to exclaim in surprise. Mao Mei muttered, "So many words, how did he do it?" No one responded to her. Only a place like Li Hua, which was poor in martial arts, would have such a boring question. Everyone present knew that those who were strong in martial arts could do whatever they wanted. They only cared about the meaning contained in the lines of words. This was undoubtedly a letter, and the recipient was Princess Pingyang. Sun Lang's tone in the letter was only for Princess Pingyang. Even though he knew that Yin Luo and the others were beside her, he didn't say a word to these girls. It was not that he didn't care, but that he cared too much and even was a little scared. It was because he knew what kind of danger and battle everyone was about to face. This time, he was trapped in the palace and couldn't protect everyone in all aspects. Instead, he had to let everyone charge and break through the enemy lines. For the slim hope of victory, they had to go through fire and water. But he couldn't just walk away. He couldn't just kill his way out of the palace and take everyone away by force. He also couldn't agree to negotiate with the devil. The devil's reputation aside, if they really reached this deal, how would Luo and the others view him? He also knew that at this critical moment, Luo and the others wouldn't run away. Even Chao Patao, who had always followed him, would have objections. After all, they were people of the empire. They were loyal and loved this country. The will to fight against the sky demon and protect the country had been integrated into the blood and spirit of these generations of empire people. How could they abandon the fallen capital? Especially when there was a glimmer of hope. He could only let go and agree to let everyone give it their all. Even though he couldn't stop worrying, he still made this decision. Everyone fell into silence, each with their own thoughts. After a while, Empress broke the silence. She looked at Princess Pingyang and asked directly, "The Hutu's sacred sword, does it have a sword seal?" Princess Pingyang was in a daze. She was clearly thinking hard. Hearing this, she said blankly, "I don't know." Empress's heart sank to the bottom. Her body swayed. She took 2 steps back and barely steadied herself. When she saw Sun Lang's message just now, her despondent self was rekindled with hope. At least Sun Lang gave a solution. At least there was a glimmer of hope to turn the situation around. But now, she grabbed Ping Yang's shoulder forcefully and shook her desperately, as if she was a drowning person who had found her last life-saving straw. "It must be on you. Hurry up and think." Sun Lang wouldn't speak without thinking. His deduction must be correct. The sword seal must be on you. Princess Pingyang looked at her crazy sister. Her heart was filled with fear and heartache. She quickly said, "Sister, calm down first. I will continue to think. Don't be like this. Don't be anxious." Empress's eyes were wide open. Her eyes were staring straight at her. This kind of gaze was even more terrifying than being crazy. Her reason was gradually collapsing, and she lost her usual calm. The blow she had received today was too great. She was only a mortal after all. Hey, don't look at her like that. The sword seal is definitely not on her. Young Miss Zhao's voice sounded. Hearing this, the Emperor's concubine suddenly turned her head. Right now, she looked like a vicious beast that was about to devour someone. Her sense of responsibility and frustration were mixed together, tormenting her to the point of insanity. Young Miss Zhao inconspicuously leaned towards Zhao Yunlong and then glared back. "What are you looking at?" She is Sun Lang's disciple and is obedient to her master. If the Emperor gives the sword seal to her and tells her that it is the sword seal of the back Earth Sword, isn't this the same as telling Sun Lang about this? With Sun Lang's personality, as long as he has the sword seal, he will make the back Earth Sword explode on the spot. This reasoning was very simple. With Empress's intelligence, it was not hard to think of this. It was just that she was blinded by the situation and had already walked into a dead end. Empress heard this, and her chaotic mind recovered a bit of her ability to think. She judged that young Miss Zhao's guess was reasonable. It was like she had received a great blow as she muttered, "Then what should I do? What should I do?" Young Miss Zhao stared at Empress. Back then, in order to protect the family business that her father had left behind, she had relied on the Heavenly Policy Palace under the watchful eyes of many people who harbored ill intentions. At that time, the Heavenly Policy Princess was a high and mighty figure to her. She only knew how to give orders and give her missions that she had to abandon her conscience and go against her conscience to complete. She didn't care whether she could complete them or whether she wanted to do them. But now, she was able to look at the soul in front of her as an equal. She even felt pity for her. Towards Empress, her feelings were very complicated. She even had some daydreams that she would one day trample this woman under her feet. But now, she already did not have this kind of thought. "AI," she sighed, "don't be like this." I once relied on you, and Tensei province always gave me some very difficult missions. It was the kind of mission where the Marquis Jingon Fu would lose their nobility, or even the entire family would be executed after the incident. I was always on tenterhooks and felt like I was your puppet, a cannon fodder that could be sacrificed at any time. And most of the time, you have only heard of my name. I once felt that this was very unfair. Why is it that we are both people, but you reincarnated so well, so high and mighty, with so many followers at your beck and call, but I have to do bad things in order to protect my family status? I believe that my intelligence does not lose to yours. So why can you live so comfortably and I can't? That's right. I'm afraid of you. I envy you. I hate you because you're very strong, you're very perfect, you are very powerful. So I want to surpass you. I want to defeat you. I want to prove that if I, Zhao Fei Huang, have the resources and power that you have, I could be more outstanding than you. I could do better than you. I've always thought this way, including this trip to the capital. With the connections and support provided by Sun Lang, I plan to arm wrestle with you. I wanted to prove that if I had the same amount of resources, I could surpass you. But now, I already don't think this way. Zhao Fei Huang sighed. Because the person I want to surpass and defeat is the perfect you, the high and mighty you, the incomparably powerful you. Right now, you have already fallen from the clouds to the mortal world, making me feel incomparably disappointed. You have even lost your cool and rationality. You can't even analyze such a simple matter and actually need me to remind you. Look at your current appearance, a disgrace, just like a dog. Princess Pingyong was unhappy. Miss Zhao, Zhao Fei Huang said indifferently. With all due respect, Your Highness, in the current state of Her Excellency Empress, even if she knows the mystery of the sword seal, she can't save the world. More likely, she will lose her life in vain. It doesn't matter whether she dies or not, but we can't follow her to die. It's better to escape from the capital and return to Mingzhou as soon as possible. Miss Zhao's sarcasm was like a breeze in her ears. Empress only heard the most important words. The mystery of the sword seal, she said in a hoarse voice. You know? Zhao Fei Huang rolled his beautiful eyes at her. Think about it yourself. Chapter 1195. In reality, young Miss Zhao had already maintained the greatest restraint. This person in charge of Marquis Jingon's household was famous for her scheming and shrewdness in Mingzhou's circle of aristocratic families. She had a sharp tongue and was eloquent. After attaching herself to Sun Lang, this golden thigh, her poisonous tongue became even more arrogant. If she used her temper to curse people, the situation would definitely go out of control. The reason why she did not go all out was to take care of Empress's self-esteem and mood. It was not that young Miss Zhao was kind-hearted. The main reason was that she was surrounded by the elite soldiers of Tensei province. In this kind of situation, vigorously provoking Empress was the same as praising a winter horse in front of the snow vegetable party and praising Sony in front of Rendon. It was an act of self-preservation, and a wise person would not do such a thing. But even so, her words were actually very unpleasant to hear. The higher the status of a proud daughter of heaven, the stronger her self-esteem was. Words like a dog and disgrace basically had no destructive power when used to curse common people, but when used on this noble descendant of an aristocratic family, it was quite vicious and unkind. However, this was necessary. Everyone was paying attention to Empress's reaction. They knew young Miss Zhao's intentions. Provocation was ancient and useful. Right now, General Tensei's condition was really too poor. Her eyes were lifeless, and she was extremely tired. She did not have her usual elegant demeanor. Anyone could see the great panic and confusion in her heart. Only the last bit of energy was supporting her, the belief that came from protecting the country. If she rushed to the battlefield in this kind of condition, only death would await her. Even if there was hope to reverse the situation, with Empress's current condition and appearance, she would not be able to grasp it. The result would only be failure and sacrifice. Whether it was Zhao Yunlong or Lu Shujin, They both knew that General Tensei's strength was indispensable if they wanted to turn the tide and save the empire from this situation. This was because they had to admit that in this kind of situation where Sun Lang could not provide any direct assistance, only Empress had the means, courage, and prestige to reorganize the last resistance and lead everyone to victory. What the Imperium needed was a rational, calm, and tenacious Empress Tensei. Young Lady Zhao was right. If Empress could not pull himself together, there was no chance of success in this operation. Rather than throw away his life, it was better to break out of the capital and flee to Ming Province. The so-called big gamble depended on the odds of success. Everyone looked at the Empress concubine and waited. Princess Pingyang wanted to say something, but was stopped by Miss Zhao's stern gaze. Empress stood weakly on the spot, her lips trembling slightly. Her body was filled with the smell of smoke, and there were dried blood and hideous scratches on her armor. Not long ago, she had completed the act of rebellion and killing her brother. Before that, she had openly opposed her monarch and father in court. She stood at the crossroads of fate, and the country that she had sworn to protect for the rest of her life was crumbling before her eyes, but she could do nothing about it. All of this had originated from the wrong choice she had made in the past. No one could understand the pain and torment in her heart. Her lips trembled, and she used her almost frozen thoughts to think with difficulty. She thought about the sword seal, she thought about the key to breaking out of the situation, but her mind was in chaos. All kinds of distracting thoughts rose and fell, and she could not concentrate. Her thoughts were rigid and slow. Everything was out of her control. Her soul was ruled by a huge loss and sadness, and it almost crushed her everything. She trembled and said, Young Lady Zhao said calmly, "What about you? Look at Sun Lang's message again, and read the last paragraph. What does it mean? Can't you read it? Can't you see it? Then let me tell you." She took a step forward, looked straight into Empress's eyes, and said resolutely, "It's a trust. It's trust." Sun Lang did not give this mission to General Zhao or Yin Luo. Instead, he gave it to you. Even if you betrayed him in the past, even if you hurt him deeply in the past, he still chose to trust you at this juncture and gave you this heavy burden. Perhaps even he himself did not realize it, but he still acknowledged and trusted you. He believed that at this time of crisis, you would be able to put down your personal grudges with him. That is why he believed you, and even agreed for us to temporarily listen to your orders. He believed that you would do the right thing at this time. But what about you? Look at your current appearance. If he saw all of this, how disappointed would he be? Empress pursed her lips, still not saying a word. Zhao Feihuang looked at her for a long time, and finally sighed in disappointment. "You're already crippled." She turned and said, "Let's go. With just us, we can't do anything. If we die here, Sun Lang will definitely go crazy. Let's break out now and return to Mingzhou to defend." Yin Luo and the others all hesitated, but when they saw the Empress concubine's dispirited appearance, they couldn't help but sigh. Although they were patriotic, they wouldn't foolishly throw away their lives. Zhao Yunlong glanced at Empress with disdain, and was the first to turn and leave. Lu Shujin pulled Yin Luo, who was still hesitating. Miss Empress paused for a moment with her back to Empress, and said indifferently, "How laughable. A few years ago, you failed to live up to Sun Lang's trust, and now it's happening again. You don't even have the courage to make up for your mistake, and instead, you've disappointed him a second time. Li, when you die, can you close your eyes?" She left without looking back. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, 4 steps. Miss Zhao silently counted in her heart. She still harbored the last shred of hope. Just as her heart continued to sink and her disappointment gradually dissipated, a low voice rang out. "Wait a moment." With her back to Empress, Miss Zhao's figure paused, and a faint smile appeared on her face. As expected, mentioning Sun Lang was the most effective. It really made her feel complicated. She still did not turn her head, and said indifferently, "What?" "The Emperor sent Pingyang to Sun Lang as a backup plan to deal with the sword spirit of the Earth Hutu. He colluded with the sword spirit of the Earth Hutu, but he was also wary of it. Of course, he would not directly give the sword seal to Ping Yang, but Ping Yang must have some secret and key to the sword seal. Miss Zhao turned around. Although Emperor's concubine still looked dispirited and listless, her spirit was much better than before. Zhao Feihuang nodded and said, "Go on." Empress's face was pale, and she looked extremely tired and weak, but behind her weakness, some kind of morbid vitality was slowly accumulating. Her voice was still hoarse, but it contained a calm power. She slowly narrated with a deep tone, and each word was sonorous and powerful. Sending Ping Yang to Sun Lang's side was because of his shrewdness and foresight. He valued the devil very much and gave him the absolute trust. But the emperor is the emperor after all, and he still has to consider the worst possibility. The backup plan under the extreme trust must be equally extreme. In other words, he must think like this. If the devil betrayed him, then he must find an executor who would not be controlled or defeated by the devil and whose position was absolutely trustworthy to stop the devil's rebellious plot. This person is, of course, Sun Lang. Among all the civil and military officials in the court, only he has enough means, strength, and determination to stop the devil's plot, and he will not be possessed by the sky demon. Everyone was listening attentively, and they could not help but sigh, as expected of father and daughter. The emperor and empress's thought circuits were similar. In the most extreme and dangerous situation, the person they trusted the most was actually the great rebel of the empire that they wanted to kill quickly. The human heart was complicated. Empress turned her head and looked at her sister. He sent Ping Yang to Sun Lang's side, just in case. Ping Yang will know a little about today, but not everything, because he did not trust Ping Yang and was worried that his daughter would reveal the matter of the sword seal to Sun Lang. But he also had to make sure that Ping Yang knew a little about it, so that when he conveyed the information about the sword seal, Ping Yang would immediately react and provide information. It could be said that he had put a lot of thought into it. Ping Yang faced her gaze and nodded rather uneasily. Empress asked, "Now you can say it. What is the sword seal or information about the sword seal?" Princess Ping Yang said softly, "I think it should be that armor." General Tensei's expression changed slightly, and then he sighed. As expected of the emperor, Chapter 1196. Armor. Of course, it was the armor of the sword saint of the nation. Back then, when the great desolate mountain changed, the royal family was anxious to save the situation. Princess Ping Yang was hurriedly pushed out. She put on a thick armor and picked up the Hudu sacred sword to hide her true appearance. The emperor and the heavenly strategies princess worked together to deceive the entire court. They made up a big lie about the sword saint of the country coming from the west and calming the heavenly demons. Princess Ping Yang also wore the armor and held the sword. She guarded the sword palace of the Hutu divine sword for 2 years. Until recently, perhaps even the devil didn't expect that the sword seal that the sages of the empire had secretly forged to keep him in check was hidden in the armor of the Star Sword Master. It was really dark under the light. What was more, Sun Lang wouldn't be interested in this armor because of the knot in his heart and Ping Yang. Princess Ping Yang also wanted to get rid of the identity of the sword saint of the nation because she had played the role of her teacher and took the credit of her teacher in some way. As for the devil, he himself directed the play of the sword saint of the nation being killed in the palace. He wouldn't consider this armor at all. It's actually that armor. Empress sighed. I thought it was the combination of the other 6 sword seals. This is probably the brilliance of the emperor's scheme. Zhao Feihuang looked at Sun Lang's message on the ground and said softly, "If I'm not wrong, the emperor must have deliberately let the devil know about the sword seal when he told the devil about it. The devil must be afraid and will definitely think of the 6 sword seals first. If the devil has a way to send a message to the outside world, he will definitely give priority to order his subordinates to snatch the 6 sword seals. Therefore, he will ignore the armor of the sword saint of the Hutu divine sword. He won't think of this at all. She glanced at Princess Pingyang with resentment. Why didn't you tell Sun Lang earlier? Princess Pingyang said in embarrassment. Father didn't tell me about it at that time. I only realized it when I saw Master's message. At that time, Father's words were vague and vague. He mentioned the identity I was pretending to be, mentioned Master, and also mentioned letting him wear the armor again. Anyway, it was just some weird words that made people scared. He had always been like this, so I didn't take it to heart. Don't blame Pingyang. The Emperor won't trust her. Why would he directly tell her about the sword mark? I've already said it. Empress said, then, the key to turning the tables is that armor. Zhao Feihuang asked, what else? Was the armor a sword seal? Or were there clues in the armor? How should it be activated? How should I use it? Everyone looked at Princess Pingyang. The princess shook her head in embarrassment. I really don't know. Empress hesitated for a moment and sighed. The Emperor would never let Pingyang know, and I have to emphasize that the Emperor prepared this backup plan for Sun Lang. According to the Emperor's plan, after he revealed this secret to Sun Lang would break out with his powerful strength and execution, find Pingyang, ask her, and deduce the clues. Then, before the devil could react, he would find the armor, find the key to defeating the devil, and defeat him. In other words, all of this plan is based on Sun Lang's powerful fighting strength. Perhaps even finding the secret in the armor and activating the sword mark will also depend on Sun Lang's special strength. She looked at Zhao Yunlong and the others and said in a serious tone, so, do you understand? This operation is not only risky, but the success rate is also not very high. Because what Sun Lang can do, we may not be able to do, especially in this situation. Because the strength of the warriors in the Imperial Army can no longer be relied on. Looking at the entire Imperial capital, those who can still fight for the Empire. There was a trace of helplessness and sadness in her tone. Only a group of mortals are left. In the silence, Inluo said, but you still have to go, right? Of course, someone from the Li family must step forward bravely to face this great disaster. We have shamed our ancestors and caused the collapse of the country. Even if there is nothing we can do, we have to take responsibility because there is still a chance of victory. The Emperor's concubine resolutely said, I will definitely not leave. Then we won't either. Inluo said, we still have 2 blazing angels. In the situation where the sky demon has all turned into humans, we have an unparalleled advantage in the air. If we want to leave, we can leave at any time. But we can't leave yet because Sun Lang is still fighting here. Agreed. This time, for the first time, Zhao Yunlong did not oppose this risky plan. The nature of the war has changed. This is no longer a civil war of the Empire, but a conspiracy of the sky demon against the humans. We clearly had a chance to counterattack, but we ran away with our tails between our legs. In my life, I have never run away before a battle in such a humiliating manner. I agreed to stay and fight. Me too. Lu Shujin nodded and said, we can't just watch the capital suffer such a great disaster. Earth Hotu has been established for hundreds of years. When has she ever suffered such a great loss? Miss Zhao also said Sun Lang is still in the palace. Censor Pang and General and should be held hostage. If something happens to these people, Sun Lang will be very sad. We have to do something. Everyone looked at Courier. Mao Mei's position was the most delicate. After all, she was from the Fire Tribe. For her, the change of Earth Hodu was not a big deal. Instead, it was an extremely sweet and shocking melon. Courier sighed. Although I am hostile to Earth Hodu, I am also happy to see the Empire at its peak fall. But if I leave you at this time, Sun Lang will definitely kill me. Everyone burst into laughter. Mao Mei also laughed. It's just a joke. Although we are from different countries, we are all humans. In the Tianyuan War, we fought side by side with Earth Hutu against the Sky Demon. It is our common mission and responsibility. Just like General Zhao said, this is no longer a civil war of the humans. She said, I'll join. Empress said in a deep voice, the Empire will not forget your help. Courier waved his hand and said, I also didn't expect that one day I would fight with a group of warriors of Earth Hutu in the capital of the empire to save this country. Fate is mysterious. Empress forced a smile, turned around, and looked at his subordinates. The Heavenly Policy Mansion's elites had gone through such a bitter battle, so they were quietly recuperating. They were treating their wounds and taking the time to adjust their breathing. Their faces were filled with fatigue and exhaustion from the bloody battle, but more than that, they were panicking. It was because of the changes that happened to their companions. They had vaguely realized that something terrible was happening. It was probably like the modern people on Earth suddenly discovering that the world's mobile phones had independent consciousness and carried out a vigorous smart machine revolution with demands such as 8-hour workday, don't King touch me while charging, and don't stare at me all day long. Or it was even more serious than that. Apart from being shocked, they were also at a loss. At this moment, they saw their general walking over. The soldiers stood up one by one, and the hangers-on and loyalists also stood in groups of 2s and 3s. Some of them had followed Empress for a long time, while some joined later. Everyone was fascinated by Her Highness' charisma and was willing to fight for her. They had once defeated the Sky Demon together and maintained the new order of the country after the war. But now, these experienced elites were greatly shaken, because the enemy this time was far beyond their imagination and even beyond their comprehension. Soldiers, as soon as Empress opened her mouth, her hoarse voice startled everyone. In the past, Her Highness' voice was always clear, powerful, and full of charm. It could make people's blood boil and make people follow her from the bottom of their hearts. But today, her voice was full of exhaustion and no longer had the vitality and determination for before. But everyone still listened carefully. Before this, we have experienced difficult battles. I am honored to have gained your trust. Just because of my order, you followed me without caring about anything and fought with me without asking who the opponent was. Now, a new enemy has appeared. Before you decide whether to continue fighting, I think I have the obligation to tell you the truth. Zhao Fei Huang and the others were all shocked. The truth? The Emperor's desire, the uncontrollable ambition, the Li family's big mistake, and the country that was about to collapse. This catastrophe originated from the Emperor's dark and evil plan. Did he want this matter to be known to the world? If so, the Li royal family might not be qualified to sit on this country. Not only that, they would also become an eternal laughingstock in the history books, despised and ridiculed by the world and other countries. In the past, Empress would never do this kind of thing. She would cover it up at all costs. No matter how great the crimes and mistakes were hidden, she would do her best to protect the reputation of the royal family so that this country would always maintain its glorious and righteous side. But now, everything might be different. Zhao Yunlong said in a low voice, it's because she doesn't want these loyal soldiers to pay with their lives for falsehood and cover up. She has to bear everything openly. Now, she has a little bit of the Li family's appearance. Everyone watched all this. They listened to Empress's final speech. This might be the last glorious performance of the Li family's descendants. Carrying the pride and responsibility of the royal family, they would do their best to correct their mistakes, calmly face everything, and accept everything. Then, they would disappear in the dust of history. They would become a disgraceful footnote of the old era that was about to end. Inluo murmured thoughtfully, is the new era coming? Empress had already pointed to the chaotic sky and the blue rain of light that was whistling down. As you can see, these ghosts of the past floating in the sky are the remnant souls of celestial demons who were unwilling to die. They descended from the heavens, possessed imperial weapons, and seized the bodies of their martial artists. The entire capital is their hunting ground, and it won't be long before all the elites and heroes of the country are captured in one fell swoop. The empire is on the verge of collapse, Wang Chong suddenly said. You can see that these ghosts of the past are the remnant souls of celestial demons that were unwilling to die. All of this. Empress was silent for a moment, gritted her teeth, and said loudly, All of this stems from the endless evil desires of the incapable ruler, from the insatiable greed of human beings, she said out loud. The walls of the old world were collapsing. Chapter 1197. This was without a doubt the least inspiring speech in the history of the empire, because the speaker didn't inspire the soldiers to fight with lofty missions and supreme honors. On the contrary, she was revealing the truth and admitting the sins. She put all the dark and ugly things under the sun and let them be passed down from then on. Everything was left for the future generations to comment on. After today, this country will usher in the most earth-shaking changes. Courier said, "This scene will definitely appear in the epics of the empire in the future. I see that the imperial power will be limited. This story will be a lesson for the future generations." As a foreigner, she hated, feared, and respected the empire. She knew the history of the empire and knew how powerful it was. But today, she witnessed everything with her own eyes. Emperor's speech was still going on. The people of Tensei province went from confusion to shock, and from shock to anger. Everything that happened today is the sin of the Li royal family. Li Guangyuan committed a crime. I am also guilty of negligence. I didn't realize his conspiracy and evil thoughts. I even helped the villain do evil. I should pay the heaviest price. The bitter fruit will be tasted by the Li family alone in the long years to come. The emperor colluded with the sky demon for his own selfish desires to seek the path to immortality. This is the shame of the Earth Hutu and the disaster of the entire country. Now, the disaster is spreading. Huge waves will sweep across the land. The peace won by the soldiers in the bloody battle of Tianyuan will no longer exist. The country will bleed. The land will be ignited with an inextinguishable flame. Civilization will be trampled. Innocent people will die. The sky demon, who has come back from the dead, will throw the fire of revenge to the entire land. This is what will happen. The culprit behind all this is the emperor and me. I won't deny it, nor will I run away from it. I have made a big mistake, and I can't atone for it, even if I die 100 times. If my life can stop this disaster, I'm willing to fall into hell forever and suffer the pain of reincarnation. But death can't solve any problems. Death is very easy. Just stretch out your neck and wipe it. But even if I die, the sky demon scheme won't stop. Now it's the capital, then it'll be Hanzhou, and then it'll be the 9 provinces of the empire. All the martial artists of the imperial army will be possessed by the sky demon, and their lifetime of cultivation and hard work will become someone else's dowry. The empire will fall into eternal decline, and I want to stop all this. This is the biggest mistake our Li family has made. This shame and sin cannot be washed away. We can only do our best to make up for it. If we can stop the sky demon scheme, then even if I die in the imperial capital, I can still smile in the underworld. Empress said resolutely, "I would rather have the world spurn my grave than let the sky demon wreak havoc and destroy the world. I hereby admit the crimes and mistakes of the royal family, and I am willing to protect the world's right to judge and warn. For this, I am willing to pay any price." After she finished speaking, she turned her back to the imperial city and was silent for a moment. Facing the soldiers, the people in the market square, and the imperial city, she slowly knelt down. The soldiers were in an uproar. Although they were shocked by the crimes of the royal family and the calamity before them, and even felt angry, their respect and love for Empress was still there. She was such a peerless beauty that no one in the world could deserve to kneel to her. Some people immediately moved to the side, some wanted to go up and support her, and even more people wanted to kneel without thinking. At this moment, Empress shouted, "Don't move. This is a military order." Military orders were like mountains, and General Tensei's prestige was even more profound. Once she said this, the soldiers obeyed. "You deserve this, kneel. If you don't, then I won't be able to die in peace." Empress said with a hoarse voice, "The royal family has lost its virtue, and the emperor is ruthless. He caused this calamity for himself, and he can't live. However, this country is not only the emperor's country, but also the place where thousands of people live and work in peace. It was pacified by countless bloody battles. The royal family has lost its virtue, and the world is in chaos. I don't have the right to ask you to continue fighting for the country, and I don't have the face to continue enjoying your following. However, the emperor's death is not regrettable, but the country is more important than everything. The Hutu is not the Hutu of a single family, but the Hutu of thousands of families. I ask you to fight with me for the last time for this innocent country, because at this point, I have no other choice. The imperial army cannot be relied on, and the reinforcements are far away. We are at the end of the line, and there are ambushes on all sides. We have reached the most dangerous moment, and there is a hopeless situation in front of us. I have no other choice, and there is only one chance left. But I have to fight with blood and lives, so I can only ask you. She lowered her head deeply, gritted her teeth, and said, "Bleed with me." So she knelt down. This was tantamount to asking everyone to die with her. How slim was the chance of victory? What they were facing was the Sky Demon, who had the power of the imperial army and the body of a powerful warrior. And they were just a group of ordinary warriors and soldiers. Or rather, they were losers, people who did not have enough talent. Because the most outstanding people in this country would participate in the military examination, pass the imperial examination, and be appointed to the imperial army. In the Hutu country, this was the only right path. But who would have thought that in such a great change in the empire, the ones who might be able to turn the tide were these mortals who could not transcend mortality and live under the clouds? Today, the national treasure that the empire had relied on for hundreds of years and ran rampant in the world could no longer shine. But it was replaced by the light emitted by humans themselves. The soldiers went from an uproar to silence, from silence to calmness, and from calmness to firmness. They also knelt down in front of the empress. Perhaps they were losers, people who were not so successful, but the achievement of martial arts depended on hard work and talent. The strength of talent and the strength of character had nothing to do with each other. Perhaps hundreds of years of national policy and silent influence had made the people of the empire forget the original intention of the military examination. They simply saw it as a golden path that could lead to a meteoric rise and change their fate. Perhaps with the passage of time, the current system had deviated from the original intention of the people who had set it up. One could not become a powerful warrior after passing the military examination and being appointed to the imperial army. But after becoming a powerful warrior, one could freely control the imperial army. The difference between the two was actually very, very big. At this critical moment, the remaining warriors of Tensei province made up their minds. They knelt down together and swore to disregard life and death and practice all the meaning of martial arts in this life. Even if the road ahead was dangerous, even if the enemy was incomparably powerful, this was not a reason to stop fighting. Valiant warriors facing the national disaster together. At this moment, in the imperial city, Sun Lang and the devil were still facing off. The imperial guards and the eunuchs of the Directorate of Martial Affairs activated the Great Array, protecting the palace. Seeing the thick earthen walls around the golden palace crumble, they all hurried over to protect the emperor. Seeing the imperial palace in ruins, the ministers surrounding the emperor with swords drawn and bows bent, and Sun Lang standing proudly in the wind, looking like he was going to beat them up all by himself, they immediately believed 70 to 80% of the rumors of this person rebelling. Thus, the soldiers and horses fell into formation, and the experts stood guard in all directions. The devil waved his hand. "Withdraw." The eunuch holding the sword of the Directorate of Martial Affairs hurriedly said, "Your Majesty." The devil glared and shouted, "I said withdraw." The emperor's orders could not be disobeyed. This was even more true for the emperor's personal army and servants, because this was the highest principle they relied on to survive. Waiting for them to withdraw, Sun Lang chuckled and said, "You imitated me very well." The devil said indifferently, "Accompanying each other day and night, being influenced by what I see and hear, and imitating with the intention. This is not difficult at all. Sun Lang said, "So you imitated me very well?" In the great desolate mountain, the devil had wanted to possess Sun Lang. "You're still brooding over it," the devil said helplessly. "But to be honest, imitating you is much harder than imitating Li Guangyan. He is the emperor, high and mighty. His thoughts are gloomy and temperamental, and his words are enigmatic and hard to grasp, so it's easier to imitate. As for you," he shook his head. Evidently, Sun Lang was a talkative person, and he was also a chatterbox. Imitating him was far too difficult. Sun Lang chuckled. "I'll take it as a compliment." The devil said, "It was a compliment in the first place." The two were silent for a moment. After a while, Sun Lang broke the silence. "I suddenly thought of something." "Speak." Sun Lang looked at the dragon, Qi hovering in the sky. His gaze was distant, as if he had returned to hundreds of years ago. Hundreds of years ago, in the First Great War of Tianyuan, the empire did not have any imperial army at that time. In terms of national strength, it should be far inferior to the present. Although it paid an incomparably heavy price, it still won the war and even killed the ancestor sky demon and seized his sword. He asked, "Can you tell me how the humans at that time did it?" Chapter 1198. Can you tell me how the humans did it at that time? Sun Lang asked as if nothing had happened. The devil's eyes flickered slightly. "Why? I'm just a little curious. Although we have exchanged memories, I don't seem to have seen the memories about this matter, so I want to ask you." Sun Lang spread out his hands and said, "Think about it. Hundreds of years ago, the people of the empire didn't have an imperial army at all, and so did the other four countries. It was just an ordinary iron civilization. At most, there was a little unscientific supernatural power. In terms of comprehensive national strength, technological level, and armed forces compared to now, there should be a difference of clouds and mud, right?" he said with a smile. "But it was such a group of humans who defeated a group of aliens who came across the galaxy and beat the ancestor sky demon to death. I'm very curious about the process." The devil's face showed obvious displeasure. The history that Sun Lang mentioned was the heroic epic of humans, the origin of the 5 major countries. Hundreds of years ago, humans had won a victory that was destined to be passed down through the ages and brought countless wealth and gifts to future generations. It was worth remembering and writing about forever. But for the victims, this was not something to be happy about, especially for the devil. When Sun Lang's question fell into his ears, it roughly meant something like this. "Hey, how did those primitive, crude, backward, and barbaric humans from hundreds of years ago cut your beloved master into 8 pieces, then kidnapped and imprisoned you for all kinds of research, and forced you to become a beep that continuously produced beep? That was probably it. It was too much." This question, the devil obviously didn't want to answer. He said coldly, "What happened at that time? Why are you still talking about it?" The reason why the humans could win was that the first time they came to this planet, it was not the regular army of our race, which gave the humans the opportunity to bully the few with numbers. Sun Lang shook his head and said, "No, you and I both know that in the face of absolute quality, quantity is useless." The devil said lightly, "Doesn't the human race have a saying? Enough ants can bite an elephant to death." Sun Lang replied, "The speed of a large-scale ant colony is only a few dozen meters per hour. Unless the elephant is surrounded by a sea of ants and can't move, it's impossible to stop them. Moreover, with the thickness of the elephant's skin, if the ant colony wants to break through, it has to be the most ferocious ants. The so-called many ants can kill an elephant is actually a situation that can only happen in theory. You know what I mean, right?" The devil said coldly, "I don't understand. I don't want to talk about the past. It's meaningless." Sun Lang bared his teeth. "What if I must know?" The devil didn't say anything. Sun Lang also looked at him quietly. The air began to be filled with an austere aura. The sky demon had basically completed the possession and had begun to adapt to the body. They had established a direct connection with the Imperial Army. Hundreds of the world's top elites were eyeing Sun Lang covetously. They knew who Sun Lang was and had an irreconcilable hatred for him. Moreover, the devil, who had occupied Li Guanyuan's body, was controlling 3 holy swords, and there were 3 sword saints on the side. The situation would only be more serious than before. After a while, the devil couldn't help but laugh. "As expected of you," he said. "Have you already guessed it?" Sun Lang didn't say a word and didn't comment. "Well, you'll guess it sooner or later. There's no harm in telling you, because now this secret has become meaningless, Sun Lang." The devil said calmly, "You guessed right. The warriors of the Empire hundreds of years ago were indeed a little stronger than the warriors of today. Even though martial arts have developed over the past hundreds of years, new techniques have been introduced, and the theories of moves have been perfected. Warriors can even exert a terrifying power that can topple mountains and overturn seas with the help of the Imperial Army. Purely in terms of martial arts, the warriors of the Empire hundreds of years ago were indeed a little stronger than the warriors of today. This is my answer." This was the devil's answer. He had crossed hundreds of years of the Hutu Empire. This was the conclusion he had seen and concluded with his own eyes. Sun Lang was silent for a moment, and then he revealed a mocking smile. "It's indeed as I expected. No wonder when I read the history books and biographies from hundreds of years ago, the grandmasters recorded in them were many times stronger than today. I thought it was just an exaggeration by the literati, but I didn't expect it to be reality." Sun Lang sighed. "In the past hundreds of years, the empire hasn't changed much. The inheritance is complete, and martial arts are prevalent. In the path of martial arts, the present is better than the past, and the future is better than the present. This is a natural thing. It's just that the concepts of martial arts today are stronger than in the past, and the movements of today are better than in the past. The pure combat power of warriors is stronger in the past than in the present. This is indeed the harm of the Imperial Army." He took a deep look at the devil. "You're amazing. It's never too late for the Sky Demon to take revenge. You actually managed to hide it from the heroes of the Empire at that time. The Hutu Empire's current situation was decided hundreds of years ago." The devil didn't look complacent. He shook his head and said, "Harm? Wrong. This is the choice of the people of the Empire. In the path of martial arts, the past is better than the present." Do you think that you're the only one who discovered it in the past hundreds of years? Many smart and wise people have discovered it, but almost all of them kept silent. Occasionally, there would be a person who was brave enough to speak up, but he was treated as a lunatic who couldn't pass the military examination and was spouting nonsense. It's because of the Imperial Army. In terms of pure combat power, the warriors of today are indeed weaker than the warriors of ancient times. But the people of today have the Imperial Army. Taking into account the abilities of the Imperial Army, they can surpass the ancient times and surpass the ancient times. In this way, the world of martial arts is still developing forward. It's just that most of the top warriors put their intelligence and wisdom into developing the Imperial Army. Of course, they can also convince themselves that the Imperial Army has already become a part of martial arts. Sun Lang sneered and said, "Listening to what you said, it seems that they reap what they sow. Most of their energy was spent on the Imperial Army, which delayed their cultivation of martial arts and even caused today's disaster. All of this is their fault, and it has nothing to do with you?" The devil said, "There's actually nothing wrong with their way of thinking. It can't be considered as reaping what they sow. It's just like you people on Earth. You invented tools, so you freed your hands. With the division of labor in society, most people are no longer hunting and farming. Can you blame them for forgetting the skills of hunting and production?" Sun Lang shook his head and said, "This is not the same. It's the same. It's just that there's a difference between high level and low level. Speaking of high level, you want to create a bigger and stronger artificial intelligence, hoping that the machine will do anything you don't want to do for you. If a super artificial intelligence that can infinitely improve and become stronger expands into an evil, tyrannical, and powerful god, does this count as you reap what you sow? It should be. In addition, you also put your hopes on the so-called controllable nuclear fusion, hoping that the unlimited supply of energy can solve all the contradictions and problems of civilization once and for all. But have you ever thought that your current ecosystem is not as solid as a rock? The unlimited supply of energy and the endless desire of human beings means that you will desperately squander energy at an exponential rate. What this will bring is a terrifying amount of heat energy that is almost equivalent to the power output of the sun to the earth. Before you can react, this additional heat income from the earth will destroy your complex and diverse biosphere. And before the disaster completely erupts, all of you will turn a blind eye to this threat, because no country or government dares to ignore the pleas of the people to fully open nuclear fusion because of this concern. Ordinary people are always the most short-sighted, and everyone else also has their own interests and considerations. Then, what will happen? A global disaster will strike. After the storm passes, the remaining civilizations will learn from their mistakes and decide to limit the use of nuclear fusion, and the countries will start a war over the allocation of heat output. Say, is this also a reap of what you sow? Sun Lang was puzzled and said, "Wait a minute. What are you going to say? I'm just describing the nature of you humans. Whether it's on Earth or in this world, humans have the nature of being lazy and loathe work. In order to liberate labor, technology will advance, and all the bad consequences and benefits will be for you to taste alone." The devil said, just like now, the ending of Hutu is inevitable in the development of history. No matter what intentions I have, they can't resist the temptation of the Imperial Army. The Imperial Army can let the warriors reach a higher mountain, but it will also let them face more dangerous situations, and then they chose to accept it. He raised his hand and pointed behind him. The eyes of the ministers were burning with blue flames. It was the light of the soul of the sky demon. This is the price Hutu paid for this. They have been arrogant and domineering in the world for hundreds of years, and even made our race pay a heavy price that we can't bear. Now it's time for revenge. He said seriously, Sun Lang, whether you accept it or not, Hutu is finished. I know why you asked me that question, and I can also answer you. The warriors of Hutu can no longer reach the heights they had hundreds of years ago, just like you Earthlings can no longer be as brave and good at fighting as you were in the ancient times, just like you Earthlings can no longer be as simple, and virtuous as you were in the ancient times. Because you have all made your own choices. You have enjoyed the benefits, but you also have to bear the consequences. This is a law that all civilizations and creatures must abide by. If there is gain, there is loss. Sun Lang asked, is it the same for the other 4 countries? The devil said indifferently, the gift of my race is not so easy to take. Of course. Sun Lang sneered and said, you say it as if you are already sure of victory. The devil said calmly, only when I solve your problem can I be sure of victory. Sun Lang, I know you're still brooding over what happened in the Great Desolate Mountain. I know you're still looking for a good chance to win. I can accompany you until you accept the reality. No matter what happens, my promise to you will always be valid. Sun Lang's heart sank when he heard that. Could it be? At this moment, Tensei's army was rising. Huge banners were fluttering in the wind, and the warriors who had been through hundreds of battles were marching forward. In the chaotic capital, there was a troop with a clear banner going against the current, singing with emotion. The warriors did not return. Their brave hearts were like before, and they went to visit the god in charge of victory. Chapter 1199. What can an army made up of hot blood and beliefs do? Perhaps nothing could be done. They were not the regular army of Tensei province. Apart from some personal guards, most of them were hangers-on and men of sacrifice from the government. They might be strong individually, but they lacked training and cooperation. Fighting in a military formation and fighting with warriors were 2 completely different concepts. The former focused on teamwork, while the latter focused on individual bravery. Such a hastily assembled army could only be described as a motley crew. What they were facing was a hopeless situation that had never been seen in the history of the empire. Even in the most difficult period of the Second War of Tianyuan, and even in the cruelest war hundreds of years ago, the Empire of Hudu had never faced such a predicament. The most elite officials and warriors had been wiped out, the enemy had taken control of the strategic forces of the country, and the Empire of Hudu had only been lightly armed. They were on this trip to seize the slightest hope of victory. They would die. They would definitely die. As long as they started fighting with the Sky Demon, who had successfully taken over the body of the Empire of Hutu, the enemy's reinforcements would arrive in an endless stream. For the Sky Demon, it was too easy to distinguish between friend and foe. The difference between the two was like that between a god and a human, because at this moment, only the Sky Demon could command the Imperial army. Perhaps it would only take a single clash for this motley crew to be torn apart or even wiped out by the might of the Imperial weapon. As humans, everyone was well aware of the might of the Imperial weapon. They had once relied on the power of the Imperial army to expel foreign invaders and protect their homeland, but now they were forced to face the terrifying power of the Imperial army that could destroy mountains and move seas. How could mortals resist? This trip would be extremely dangerous, and everyone present could lose their lives. Not everyone was aware of this, but many people were wrapped up in this fanatical atmosphere. Sometimes heroes only did things at the right time, but this did not damage their glory at all. The standard to judge a hero was always their actions and not their motives. This fanatical army marched forward courageously, almost tearing apart the layers of haze above the imperial capital. The flag of Tensei province fluttered in the wind, like stars surrounding the moon. The brave soldiers escorted their commander as they advanced. From any angle and any distance, their leader could be seen. He wore silver armor and a white robe, and his appearance was peerless. His every movement was filled with power and majesty, as if he was born to be a leader. Thus, the people who witnessed this march murmured, "This is Her Highness the Empress Concubine." The wanderer, who was proud of his bravery and pursued the path of chivalry, shouted, "Something has happened in the capital. Your Highness must be on this trip to kill the thieves. As martial artists, we protect the people above and report to the country below. Naturally, we will go together." The retired soldier settled down his family and said to his wife, "Bring me my armor and spear." Those who were further away could not see the army clearly. They only saw the flying dust and something higher and more eye-catching than the dust. It was a flag. The flag of Tensei Province. The flag of His Highness Empress. She was the proud daughter of heaven with outstanding military achievements. Wisdom, power, majesty, strength, and beauty were all in one body. It was as if she was chosen by the heavens. Countless people loved and admired her, and she was a popular candidate for the position of crown prince. She was the pearl of the royal family, the most dazzling star of the empire. Everyone in the capital knew about her. Dark clouds covered the capital, and blue light rain fell with a whistling sound. The earth shook, and the palace protecting array was raised in the imperial city. It was a scene of chaos. When everyone was at a loss and fearful, the flag of General Tensei was flying in the city, and an army in bright clothes was rushing forward. Although no one knew where the army was going or who they were going to fight, such a scene and such an army, such a flag, and the heroic bearing of General Tensei galloping on the horse would make the fearful people feel at ease and make the powerful people decide to follow. This was the greatest wealth that Empress had obtained after more than 10 years of painstaking work, the people's hearts. Even though she had used too many dark and even sinful means, even though she had made many decisions against her will, at this moment, in the most difficult, righteous, and courageous battle of her life, the cause she had pursued and fought for all her life gave her the last and greatest positive feedback. She raised her flag, and the people recognized her and responded to her. At the most difficult moment, the effect that this flag could play was beyond anyone's imagination. Your Highness, the people's hearts can be used. A general of Tensei province who was galloping side by side with Empress roared excitedly, "We will definitely win. Future generations will remember this day. Remember our bravery and deeds. Our names will forever remain in the annals of history, passed down from generation to generation, until we become legends. This general had the potential to be a poet and was romantic. Unfortunately, his commander did not respond to him. He looked to the side and saw that Her Highness Empress's appearance was the same as before, beautiful and majestic at the same time. However, she seemed colder and more majestic than usual, and there was even a sharpness that was as awe-inspiring as a sword. Her Highness just silently galloped on the horse and sped up. Her waist was straight, and she exuded a domineering and majestic aura that made people trust her. She was like the brightest lamp, guiding the people's hearts to victory. "This is the Lord that I swear to follow with my life," the general said in his heart, and he also suppressed the admiration that he never dared to express deep in his heart. He was a subordinate, and she was the monarch. To be able to have the opportunity to fight a bloody battle with His Highness through life and death, this was already the greatest fortune. Even if he was stabbed with an axe and died in the Yellow Springs, what was there to fear? He roared against the wind, forward. In this solemn and brave troop, other than the flag and the soldiers of the Heavenly Policy Mansion who were full of fighting spirit, there was also a small group of mobile troops that were particularly eye-catching. There were not many of them, but they were all very eye-catching. Huge crimson metal armors, rumbling sounds of movement, evil paint, and ferocious shapes. It was a power armor troop from Lihua. Inlua's Yanyan power armor showed its powerful combat strength with the most Russian paint and body shape, so it received a natural leadership advantage and prestige bonus. She herself used the evil voice changer of a loudspeaker and her own Russian culture to consolidate this advantage and became the undisputed leader. Violent and fierce Slavic language spewed out from her loudspeaker. "You will fight with the warriors of the Imperial Army of Hutu. Don't hesitate. Don't show mercy. All the killing is in accordance with the rules of the church, and all the fighting behavior is approved by the Divine King." She shouted loudly. "Every time you kill a warrior of the Imperial Army, the power of Hutu will weaken a little. This is a gift from the Holy Fire, teaching you sinners to appear on the most suitable battlefield and contribute to the burning church. Your achievements and contributions will be seen and recorded by the Spirit of the Holy Fire. When your body is sublimated and your soul is united with the fire in the future, you will also receive more favor and praise than others, as long as you fight bravely today." Speaking of this, Inluo raised the magma power axe in her hand and roared, "You believers must remember to live in the face of death and to be fearless of blades and axes. Death is your compass, woo." The Mouslavs echoed fervently, "Woo-la." In the communication channel, Courrier's subtle voice echoed, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. "Is this really a good idea?" Inluo sighed. "This is the only way. Perhaps the possessed warriors still have a chance to return to normal. But before that, this fragile troop will be faced with the ferocious attacks of the Sky Demon in the extraterrestrial world. We are at a disadvantage, an unprecedented disadvantage. Any mercy and mercy will be even more irresponsible." She said softly, "Therefore, this is the only way. Between the two choices, which are worse and worse, some people will hesitate, and some people will stick to their principles. However, the bravest action is to make the best choice." Courrier was silent for a moment. "That doesn't sound like something you would say." Inluo smiled and said, "You really don't look like it." Maomei seemed to have thought of something and said helplessly, "Damn it, this is not the Lihuan nation. This is your homeland, and these are all your compatriots." "I thought," Inluo said indifferently, "but I want to see Sun Lang again. I want to help him, so I can do it." Courrier said firmly, "You definitely will." Inluo nodded silently and said, "On the other side, I hope everything goes well." Courrier and Inluo could only use the Lihua combat armor to fight. Their weapons were extremely eye-catching, so they stayed with the troop to provide cover fire and maximize their combat power. Outside of this troop, There was another small troop that followed the troop, ready to act alone at any time. Zhao Yunlong, Lu Shujin, Zhao Fei Huang, and Princess Pingyang. The strongest fortress is breached from the inside. The Sky Demon has successfully taken over the body of the Imperial Army, and its power is unparalleled. In a direct confrontation, we are at a great disadvantage, so we have to change our way of thinking. Moreover, our goal is to obtain the Sword Seal, not to engage in a large-scale battle. Therefore, infiltration is a more effective method. The four of them were all wearing armor that covered their faces. Zhao Yunlong looked at Miss Zhao. You don't know any martial arts. Asking you to come with us is indeed difficult. Zhao Fei Huang said in a muffled voice, although I don't know any martial arts, I'm not completely powerless. In this situation, I might be able to play a greater role. Zhao Yunlong nodded and said, indeed, we're going to disguise ourselves as sky demons, and this will require your psychic ability to cover. Those sky demons have all taken over the body of humans, so they lack the means to confirm their identities. This will give us a chance to fish in troubled waters. With the large troops attack as cover, the chances of success are quite high. Everyone, remember to protect yourselves. If there are no problems, we will set off. She glanced at Princess Pingyang. Her Royal Highness's face was also hidden under the full helmet. She calmly responded, I understand. Then let's set off. Chapter 1200. In the chaotic capital, a well-organized army that was advancing at a high speed would attract attention, no matter if it was an ally or an enemy. The flying flag of Tensei province calmed the panicked people and attracted the hot-blooded men to follow it. The bravest group of people in the empire chose to step forward at the critical moment. No one knew if this choice was right or wrong. Maybe they would use their courage and faith to create a victory song, or maybe Hutu would lose the most hot-blooded and sincere group of people because of this. Because this flag also attracted the attention of the enemy. In the last 10 years of the Tianyuan War, the Tensei flag flying on the battlefield was an iron wall that made the sky demon sigh. It was a strong enemy that made the champions of the Saint Selection happy after winning. Today, when Hutu collapsed, the first person to raise the flag in the city was General Tensei. It was unexpected, but reasonable. None of the Sky Demon was surprised. Defeat this human and end the old order of the Hutu Empire. This was the beginning of the revival of the race. The Sky Demon who had taken over Hutu Empire's body approached with cold flames in their eyes. Then they attacked. The walls on both sides collapsed one after another. The hidden attackers suddenly leaped out. Their monarch weapons were like wheels, intercepting the middle of the group. In an instant, blood splattered everywhere. Amidst the rumbling waves of air, two streaks of sword gleam slithered closer like poisonous snakes, biting towards the Heavenly Strategy's Empress, who was completely unaware. The Heavenly Demons all knew who the real enemy was. The general who was protecting Empress Tensei shouted, "Be careful, Your Highness!" He gritted his teeth and thrust his spear forward. He was going to die together with Empress Tensei. He had to block the fatal attack for Empress Tensei and cause enough trouble for the assassins. After all, as far as he knew, Empress Tensei was busy with military affairs and strategizing. Her attainments in martial arts were not top-notch. After all, a person's energy and wisdom were limited. A monster-like commander of war, Jia Ying, was really too rare. Then he felt his shoulders sink. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw that Her Highness maintained the speed of her warhorse as she steadily extended her right hand and pulled his body to the side. Then, with a flip of her left hand, she pulled out the short sword on her saddle. 3 streaks of sword light that were hard to see with the naked eye crisscrossed and met the sinister surprise attack head-on. Blood splattered everywhere. Ordinary people were actually better than the Imperial Army. His 2 arms and the long sword in his hand soared into the sky. Empress's eyes reflected the color of shock, anger, and pain. Then, all the emotions froze because there were a total of 3 sword lights just now. The last one took down 2 heads. Then, The two heads were lifted into the air. Then, the ape-like arms stretched out and caught the heads in Empress's hands. General Tensei raised the two heads and roared, "Kill all enemies." The general who had just escaped death stared blankly at the Empress. Then his soul trembled. What a powerful and heroic figure. So His Highness had been concealing his strength and biding his time, he thought to himself, and accepted this setting without hesitation. Then he roared, "Kill all enemies." Inluo thought very clearly. No matter what, now is not the time to show mercy. The rumbling of guns and cannons roared loudly. Seraph in the air was the first to unleash the cannons. With the help of the organic souls, she had the advantage in target capture and fire control calculation. She was the best cannon fire guide. The attack from the sky came crashing down. On the ground, the power armor troops, led by Inluo, immediately concentrated and fired. The overwhelming firepower overwhelmed everything. The Sky Demon, who took the initiative to attack, first ran into trouble. They had already taken over the body of a human and had not yet adapted to the operation of the human body and internal force. They could not exert the full power of the Imperial Army. More importantly, they thought they only needed to deal with the warriors of Hoodoo, but they ran into the guns of Li Fire head-on. The original Sky Demon naturally had a mature combat strategy to deal with Li Fire's guns. But with a human body, without the holy shield and light armor, how could they resist? How fragile was the body of flesh and blood? Stop shooting. Continue to move. Courier's kill confirmation came from the short-distance communication channel. Inluo issued the order. Through the thick helmet, she glanced at Empress Tensei's always straight figure and sighed silently. The girl's heart was immediately moved. She thought of Sun Lang, who was ambushed from all sides in the Imperial City. She also thought of Zhao Yunlong and the others who were secretly infiltrating. One in the light and one in the dark. The risky plan must succeed. The target is the Earthbright Sword Palace. That day in the palace, after the so-called nation-suppressing sword was destroyed, the armor left behind was sent back to the star-suppressing sword palace. The four-man team also moved at high speed. Princess Pingyang gave the final explanation. Zhao Yunlong frowned and said, "Since it is the Emperor's backup plan, why is it so troublesome?" Princess Pingyang patiently said, "I have already said that the Emperor's countermeasure is designed for Sun Lang. With Sun Lang's combat strength, there is no difference whether the armor is placed in the Sword Palace or the Martial Arts Hall. It is reasonable to put the armor back in the Sword Palace. The devil will not notice anything strange." She heard the sound of explosions and screams coming from not far away. The chaotic battle had begun again. Hardening her heart, the princess continued, "But for us, things will be much more troublesome. Do you see those 7 pillars of light? The star-suppressing sword palace is one of them. No matter what the reason is, the Sky Demon will defend this place with all its strength. We can only work together in the light and in the dark. One side will attack while the other side will infiltrate. This way, we have the greatest chance. Because we cannot afford any failure." Chao Patao was silent for a moment, and then said coldly, "You even asked your sister to pretend to be you and attract most of the killing intent and attacks in the frontal attack." The Princess Pingyang in this team was actually Empress Tensei herself. The Empress Tensei leading the charge was actually Princess Pingyang. The appearance of the two sisters was almost exactly the same. The only obvious difference was their temperament. And now, it seemed that Princess Pingyang's acting was perfect. That dignified and resolute look was exactly the same as the usual Empress concubine. After all, she had been the sword saint of the kingdom for 2 years. She was already used to being cold and dignified. The Empress concubine was silent. "Just as you said, that position, that banner, and that person will suffer the most hostility and attacks. With my martial arts, if I lead the charge, I probably won't be able to reach the Sword Palace alive. But right now, I can't die, just like that banner can't fall. Do you understand?" She said coldly. "How can you understand my painful choice to put my sister in danger? But this choice is necessary. In addition, Pingyang is also a descendant of the Li family. We are born noble, and have never had to worry about food and clothing. We have been worshipped and supported by the people. We have enjoyed all kinds of luxuries and supreme glory. Now that our country is in trouble, we should pay with blood and sacrifice. She has the blood of the Li family in her body, so she should stand at the front. Zhao Yunlong said lightly, "You always like to use all kinds of banners to do disgusting things with a clear conscience. You have always been like this." Miss Zhao saw that the situation was not right and said helplessly, "So, we have to fight among ourselves first." "Don't worry," Lu Shujin said. "They just have different ideologies and have personal grudges. These two are famous generals of the kingdom. They know what to do." Empress glanced at Zhao Yunlong and said slowly, "If you are done venting your dissatisfaction and anger, we will continue. If you're still not satisfied, I suggest you let it go. There will be plenty of time in the future." Zhao Yunlong snorted. "After finding the sword seal, we still have to find a way to activate it. Pingyang's strength comes from the same source as Sun Lang. She may be able to replace Sun Lang in using the sword seal. Just in case, I want to confirm again. Do you really know how to activate the sword seal?" Empress replied, "What good will it do me to lie or act brave?" This was still a cover-up that avoided the important and dwelling on the trivial. Zhao Yunlong knew Empress's personality very well, so he did not pursue the matter. Instead, he said to her, "If you mess it up, we will leave the capital immediately on the Blazing Angel. Sun Lang will go on a killing spree. The kingdom will collapse, and the Li family will be finished. Do you understand the consequences?" Before Empress could answer, Zhao Yunlong, Lu Shujin, and Zhao Feihuang looked to the side at the same time. 3 figures flashed and leaped over. Flames were flashing in their eyes, and there was the smell of blood on them. It was the Sky Demon. Zhao Feihuang hooked his finger and simulated with his spiritual power. Blue flames lit up in the eyes of the 4 people. Seeing this, the 3 Sky Demons stopped being alert. The leader spoke in the obscure language of the Sky Demon. "Congratulations, my people. Being reborn is the beginning of the great journey again. We will complete our revenge in another way. My name is Singalas, the tranquility of the secret message Star Ring. I'm very happy to meet you. I smell the scent of war. I will go and destroy the last resistance of Hutu." Miss Zhao and the others were stunned. Zhao Yunlong stepped forward and replied in the fluent Sky Demon language, "Congratulations to you too, my people of the secret message Star Ring. I am Archaron's, the loyal guard of the World Tree. Let's fight together again." The heavenly demon revealed a joyful smile and walked over, as if he wanted to greet them warmly. Soon after, he seemed to have thought of something and asked in confusion, "My fellow clansmen, why do you speak so fluently?" It is difficult for the human vocal organs to adapt. Communication becomes very difficult. With a bang, the spear drilled into the Sky Demon's eyes like a dragon and came out from the back of his head. Lu Shujin opened the Kidu force field. With a turn of her sword, she cut off the remaining 2 heads. "Deal with the bodies." Zhao Yunlong shook off the pieces of flesh on the tip of the spear. "I was careless. I forgot about that." Miss Zhao dispersed the Sky Demon's unwilling soul and asked curiously, "You can speak the Sky Demon language?" Chao Patao replied, "Sun Lang taught me. We often sneak to the Sky Demon camp to cause trouble. He speaks it very well. Not only is there no problem with daily communication, but he also uses some very obscure illusions to scold people. He is even more experienced than the senior Sky Demon. When he interrogates the captives, he often makes the captives fly into a rage. Let's not talk too much." Empress stepped forward and checked the 2 heads in their imperial army. She said with a sad tone, "I recognize them. The Ministry of Revenue is probably already in chaos. We have to hurry." You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.